I still have no idea how he did that. Other
I
than
don't either, unless
if
there
the
are weak
hydraulic
wires.
problem was coming in flapless, perhaps he was going so fast he exceeded the limits of the wire. That's the
Could
only
be.
thing I can think of. But,
And of course, Fresno is a joint use base, and maybe their arresting gear is not up to snuff, or it's old, or something. I don't know. Hello,
interesting.
Tim Van Ram and Mike Kuipers and Peter Tarantelli.
Oh, hi, guys.
Let's see. Tim is standing by, Mike Kuipers is sitting by, and Peter Tarantelli is lounging by. Let's see what's going on here.
So, had you ever heard of ours were called a RAG, rotary hydraulic arrestor gear? Did you ever hear of a CHAG?
No, I'm not familiar with arresting gear because I never flew anything that required it.
A CHAG is a chain arrestor gear, and they used old chains from naval anchors, the anchor chains, and they stretched that down the runway, and then they put a wire across between the two, big long stretches of chain, and then you engaged it and dragged the wire up there, and the chain sort of doubled back on itself, and the weight of it increased as you dragged more and more and more of it until it pulled you to a halt. But the one thing you had to remember was you could only engage it in one direction, because if you try and engage it going the other way, you pick up the whole weight of the chain at one go, and it rips the back of your airplane off.
So much
I
for
always thought it was very
back half
amusing.
of my airplane.
Exactly.
It stopped. I'm still going. That's funny. Neil,
What item number?
Landworm.
Well, the
That is
F-15.
the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's the that is D.
1D.
Yeah, 1D.
3.
It's a
Oh, wait a minute.
it's a video sent to Captain Nick from Captain AI. It always looks like AI to me. Captain Al.
Oh,
Much
okay.
aero refueling.
I don't
Man,
know why
is that
Al
Jeff-
thought I'd be interested. Is that news, or is it...
That's
Oh, it
news,
is.
1D.
That's in as news. Okay.
Yes, Camacho?
I really wish I wouldn't have sent that fuel story to you, because I have been trying to follow that situation
Yeah.
and only marginally effectively doing it. And it is so confusing. I spent 2 hours last night trying to read through old articles and everything so I could articulate what is actually going on.
Yeah.
I still don't feel confident about what's happening.
Well, we don't have
there.
to do it if you don't want. I mean, you don't,
No,
you
no,
don't have
we
to go
can.
that
I just-
much in depth.
Yeah. I was just hoping to have a better understanding. Armando owns a 100 low-lead airplane. Maybe he understands it.
Don't you have like 3 of them?
I do. No, I don't. I have one, but my dad has. My dad has 1 or 2 also.
Is it Menjivar? Caroline Menjivar? Is that the way you pronounce that congressman's name? Okay. Okay. Do you want me to I'll read that, and then you can start kind of
Discussing
talking a
the
little bit more,
overarching
elaborating.
situation.
Yeah.
The interesting part of that whole thing is that California is saying that you cannot sell 100 low lead after 2030, and the FAA is saying you cannot not sell 100 low lead until 2030. So it's this very wild political situation, in my mind at least.
Wow. You cannot not sell.
Yeah, the latest FAA reauthorization bill said whatever an airport was selling in 2022, so like if they were selling 100 low lead, they have to sell 100 low lead. They have to make it available until 2030 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
I've got some stuff pulled up here. Hopefully I can find it on the fly
All right.
as we're talking.
Well, I'm sure
through
you'll
it.
sound smarter about this than I will, for sure. Opening night football tonight, huh? The Chiefs are playing tonight.
The Chiefs are playing tonight. Yeah.
Thursday night football. Who are they playing?
The Ravens.
The Raisins.
Baltimore Raisins. Yeah.
Jeff and his sports ball.
Raisins.
That's what it sounded like. I know the ravens.
Raven. Right. Okay.
The way he said it, it sounded like raisins, and I went, "Oh, the raisins."
This actually checks with like most of us aviation nerds don't follow sports ball. So like
Yeah. Peter says, "Has anyone heard anything new on the Challenger crash at Venice?" No. The only thing we got was that prelim, and the fact that they got some low oil pressure enunciations, and that's it. Haven't heard squat. Have you, Peter? If so, let us know.
was this the one in Naples, Florida?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I-75 South.
yeah, it's crazy
I-
because I go into Naples really fairly regularly, and you can still see the scorch marks on the sound wall on the highway.
Yeah, in fact, I checked on it. Was it last week or the week before? We were talking about the MBAA,
The flight attendant,
the flight attendant. Yeah. So, and I thought, okay, let's see if there's anything new on that. But no, I didn't see anything. So I guess they're still compiling for the report. Okay, so Camacho Liz, as you can see and hear, is not here. She's going to try to join us after she gets back from her medical tests and stuff. So, and then I think Steph is supposed to try to join us. She said she's hoping to get home a little bit before 5. So, Steph, if you're listening while you're driving home, just, we'll probably notice you, and you can just pop yourself in whenever you want, and we'll just mention that while we're in progress. We are I do have Unity running. I think Captain Nick does as well. I know we don't have it for you, Armando, because I'm only limited to 5 spots, and Liz is going to she's the one that usually uses it and communicates with us doing Unity. So, and so with Steph. So, sorry, you're odd man out, literally.
Okay.
So hopefully it's not so critical that everybody has it running. But I do have it running so that I can hear Liz talking to us in the background. And so because Liz is not here, my dear friends watching on the video, the sausage being made here, it's going to be a little bit messy today. Lots of little pieces of sausage are going to be flying. And so I'll do my best to do the slides and all that jazz. Uh-oh, that's the wrong thing, Nick.
No, I'm messing about. I'm trying to work out how to get it to go full screen, and I think it's that button there. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Okay. I'll now remove that.
So you just
stop screen.
you go,
there you go. I found it.
Yeah, over here, that one, the second one to the right, with the 2.
No,
people.
I'm sorry. I removed it now. So
Yeah. Okay.
trouble is, if I go that slide navigator, where's presenter's view then? Oh, show the presenter display in a window.
Don't do that.
Why not?
Then we're going to see all the slides.
You could. Let me. I've got it in a separate window. Let me just see if it still works. Hang on a minute. Present.
Okay.
Share screen. Window. God, it's a pain in the backside, isn't it? Share. And then go.
And you don't need to completely shut it down. When you want to remove it from view, you just hover your mouse over that little video thumbnail, and then it says remove.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
See what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
you want
there
to
you go.
remove.
I've got the slide navigator and a separate window on the left now, so I can just go.
Okay.
Look
Beautiful.
and look at ladies' boobies. There you go. Perfect.
Thank you.
And so now I just go remove.
Yeah.
And it stays
But
there.
it's still there.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah. Just like
how
my
many
Jess
stage things can you do at a time, though?
Well,
1 billion.
No, just shy, 999 million.
I see. No, it's the same one. I got it now. Okay, it's the
Yeah.
same window. So now
Yeah.
I can add that bit, and now I can remove it. Ah, cool. Okay, I'm
There you
getting the
go.
hang of this now. I haven't done it for
Great.
a long time.
Very good. And so I went ahead because playing the video in Keynote on this other machine, I don't think is going to work very well. So I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. And so you'll see on the video thumbnails there that I have one that says damaged F-15E. And
Yep.
so I'll just add that to the
To
stage. And it
emergency,
should
just
start.
letting you know here, we've got live missiles on board the jet.
Live nipples?
Missiles.
Oh, missiles. Okay.
We would call them a missile, but there you go.
We call them missiles here.
Oh, there you do.
Like the thing that the
That's what,
Catholics
that's what
use
you
in,
read when you're
church.
in church is a missile.
Yes. I know. Okay.
You
But
don't
most
read a
people here don't
missile.
know what that means, and so that's why we call the missile a missile. And that's why we say turbine instead of turbine. You say
Which is
potato, and we say potato.
wearing a turban on your head is one thing, but wearing a turbine on your head, now that's completely different.
That is true. Okay. I don't know. What do you guys think? You ready to give this a shot?
If we have to,
Probably
I'm
should.
ready.
I'd rather just chew the breeze personally, but
Actually, that would be a lot more fun, wouldn't it?
yes.
All right. So what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to add this to the stage. And then I need to go over here and hit the brand and do the countdown. And then I got to put my other hand and finger on Radio Rogers intro. Let me just do a quick, I didn't actually ask anybody, how are our volumes? Are they pretty level, even, comparatively speaking? And while you're thinking about that or typing away, I'm going to play Radio Roger to make sure that this isn't bad.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door. WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 630.
Sounds like he's yelling at me right now. You're muted, Nick.
Sorry, yeah, he sounds a bit upset with you, mate.
Is it too loud? It sounds really loud.
No,
to me.
it's fine. No, it
Okay.
sounds great to me, but I'm deaf
All
anyway.
right. Okay. So let me do the countdown and give this thing a whirl and see. Liz, please come back soon. We miss you. I miss you.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from our side of the cockpit door. WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 630.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from the APG Road Vessel Studio. Today's show is recorded on the week of Labor Day, September 2nd, 2024.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Picture light and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a Russian airliner crashes just after takeoff, and an aerial view of Niagara Falls for tourists. Also ahead, more news, your feedback, and today's plane tale, the safety of safety. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions, electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 630 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger.
The Airline
Oops.
Pilot Guy Show. The
Slipped
view from our
my
side of the cockpit
thumb.
door.
My thumb slipped.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot
What's going on?
Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 601.
601.
Oh, wow. 601. Where did that come from?
What is that doing in there?
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Bit of finger
editing
trouble,
this one.
Jeff.
Okay, that was something entirely different, actually. Okay, lots of fun here. Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM in
New York City!
Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a former U.S. Air Force pilot and now retired Delta Airlines captain for 35 years. And joining us from his studio,
in Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
professional photographer, I guess we can still say that, right? Former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Well, hi, Jeff. Well, kinda. We'll cover that in a little while. 6:30. There's an airplane called a Potez 630. Potez, designed for the French Air Force in the 1930s. A twin-engine airplane, a bit like the BF-110. I don't think it was particularly good, was quickly relegated to second-line duties, unlike this show, which will always star.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's more uplifting than last week's
Yes,
special
it's
little
a
trivia
bit.
thing. So we're going to move on. Great to see you, Nick. And the other Nick's here from his home studio in the Air Capital, low and slow pilot, A&P mechanic, old airplane enthusiast, and engineer in the aerospace and defense industry. It's Nick Camacho.
Hey, Captain Jeff. I agree that was a little more uplifting. Just
Yeah.
talk about how negative the airplane was from the beginning versus ending in a Salmon there. So.
You know, this music is always
Making
so
progress.
loud that I really can't hear what you're saying. Go ahead. Okay.
I said everything. I said, yeah.
Oh, you're ready.
Last time Nick kind of submarined us at the end with a sad point. This time he was
Yeah.
just like, "Here's a
I know.
crummy airplane from the start." So expectations
Yes.
were set.
We're great. Everyone else is useless.
Okay. And also joining us today, we have a special guest host. He's been with us before from an undisclosed car dealership studio in North. A husband, father, retired U.S. Air Force veteran, airline pilot, and now private biz jet captain and biplane owner, Armando Carrion.
Hey guys, it's always good to see your faces. And yeah, this is my annual appearance on APG. So I expect the
Well-
check will arrive shortly.
Oh yeah, it'll be right on the way. Well, you know, you could be on with us as much as you'd like. Just give me a call, man. Just
Yeah, absolutely. If I can track you down.
How's
Yeah.
the oil
You
change
know, Matt.
going?
You know, man.
Hey, I'm always in my house, and I'm always at my number. You know my number.
I do.
All right. Let's see. So Liz, our producer, is busy right now, but she's going to join us later in the show, hopefully, fingers crossed. And so will Dr. Steph. So why don't we go ahead and start on some aviation news? What do you think?
Nah, let's drink beer.
Oh, we could do that too. We could do it both at the same time.
Oh, okay. If we have to.
Stand by for news.
All right. The first item in our news lineup today is this preliminary report. Was that crash that we talked about. I think we've talked about this before, but if not, let's see, when did it happen? July 12th, 2024. Maybe we didn't talk about this. Gazpromavia Su-95, Sukhoi Superjet 100-95 registration 88049, performing ferry flight 4G9608 from Lukhovsky Airfield.
You're doing
Yeah,
great.
nailed it.
Okay, I got to get my little bell here just to kind of, there we go. That makes me feel better. Let's see. There were 3 crew on board. They were climbing through about 3,000 feet out of Lukhovsky's runway 28.
I'm going to say Lukhovitsky.
Yeah, I keep wanting to put a K in there too, but I don't think there is one. Lukhovitsky.
Well, there's a K in my notes, but don't worry.
Well, I mean, there's one at the beginning of it, one at the end. There's only one. Lukhovitsky. Anyway, they were taking off from runway 28.
Vitsky, yes, not ski. Yeah. You're quite right.
When the aircraft lost height, impacted ground amidst a forest near somewhere near the airport. Approximate position, blah, blah, blah. 56 nautical miles southeast of Moscow's Vnukovo airport at about 14:58 local time. About 7 minutes after departure, all 3 crew perished in the crash. The aircraft had been in maintenance in Lukhovitsky's at that airport and was on its first flight following maintenance. The crew transmitted a distress signal. Ground observers reported the aircraft took off and fell, followed by an explosion on the ground. Russia's press agency TASS reported that preliminary information by emergency services suggests that the aircraft had suffered engine failure. Moscow's Transport Prosecution Office, that sounds intimidating, have opened an investigation into the crash. Russia's Civil Aviation Authority, Rosavatsia, confirmed a Su-95 crash near Moscow. And the Interstate Aviation Committee, MAK, is investigating the occurrence. In the late evening, Rosavatsia added that both black boxes had been found. Okay. Russia's Ministry of Transport stated that the crashed aircraft had no permission to fly. Ooh, that's no good. As I mentioned before, the aircraft had undergone major maintenance, and they had positioned at Lukhovitsky on May 3rd, 2024, and had not flown since. Reported that there had been a C-check. Additional periodical checks and additional works were to be carried out as well on this test flight. The aircraft was flying in accordance with a filed flight plan, in accordance with received application and approved by operational bodies of the United Air Traffic Management System, blah, 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 blah. Okay. On July 16th, 2024, it became known that on July 14th, the aircraft manufacturer had released a letter, see below, reminding operators of, quote, the need to strictly comply with the requirements of the manual when replacing angle of attack sensors, further reiterating during dismantling and installation of the angle of attack sensor, pay special attention to aligning the holes and marks on the overlay with the mark on the fuselage skin, and reinstall the overlay only on the place of the fuselage skin from which it came from during removal, and urges operators to double-check installations as well as avoid situations where one mechanic would replace more than one angle of attack sensor on the same aircraft. Okay, so here's the sequence of events here. The crew, consisting of the aircraft commander, second pilot, and flight attendant, was flying from that airfield that I'm having trouble pronouncing, to the base in Moscow after performing periodic maintenance. The autothrottle was engaged before takeoff. The autopilot was engaged. The autothrottle was engaged before takeoff. The autopilot was engaged after takeoff at a true altitude of 550 feet. In the 5th minute of flight, from a virtually level flight at QNH altitude of 5160 feet, pitch angle values were 5 to 6 degrees to pitch up. Recorded angles of attack were 10 to 11 degrees. The aircraft began to descend with a pitch angle of up to 4 degrees to dive. So a negative 4 degrees, I guess. At the moment of transition to descent, the indicated airspeed was 200 knots, and increasing synchronous retraction of the flaps and slats to the fully retracted position occurred. During the descent, the autopilot and autothrottle were disconnected. The crew switched to manual control of the side stick and engines. The descent continued to an altitude of 4,500 feet, with a subsequent climb to 4,750 feet. In the 6th minute of flight, at a speed of 320 knots, the overspeed sound signal was on. The aircraft began to descend with an increase in the pitch angle to a dive. The descent could not be stopped by the crew despite full backwards deflection or up deflection of the side stick. Let's see, the last recorded parameter values indicated airspeed 365, vertical descent rate 17,000 feet per minute. Yikes.
Ouch.
Pitch angle 25 degrees nose down, bank angle minus 25 degrees to the right, or 25-degree bank angle to the right. Power plants operated until parameters recording ceased. So it wasn't an engine failure. And then on July 29th, Rosavatsia had asked Gazpromavia to stop using one of their Su-95s after inspections of the maintenance facilities at Lufthansa. The facility had won contracts to provide C-checks to Gazpromavia Su-95s, one of which was the crashed one. On August 30th, 2024, so not too long ago, last week, the preliminary report reported that the flight was approved. Okay, so the flight was approved. Pre-flight preps were normal. Aircraft departed normally. During climb, after flaps were retracted from position 2 to position 1, the crew received a nav ADS disagree and speed disagree message, and a chime verified their speed indications to be the same, 190 knots indicated, decided to continue the flight. The nav ADS disagree and speed disagree messages cleared and reoccurred about 20 times. Ooh. If the speed sources differs beyond the threshold, the message is signaled and removed when the difference reduces below the threshold. The aircraft leveled off at 5,000 feet in accordance with ATC clearance. While maintaining level at 5,000 feet, pitch angle 5 to 6 degrees nose up, the air data computer number 1 indicated an angle of attack of 10 to 11.5 degrees. Air data computer number 2, 11 to 13.5 degrees. Let's see, let me get to the critical part here. Let's see, while the aircraft was descending, the first officer pilot flying was puzzled about the descent when the aircraft should be climbing. Deflected the controls nose up at 13.7 degrees, which disconnected the autopilot. The captain took control of the aircraft. Having accelerated to 270, the available angle of attack permitted the captain temporarily, the angle of attack permitted by the jet allowed the captain to temporarily arrest the descent after reaching 4,500 feet. Auto thrust was switched off. The crew adjusted thrust manually. The aircraft accelerated to 308, prompting an overspeed warning. At 4,600 feet, 280 knots, the captain announced unreliable speed, acknowledged and confirmed by the first officer. The captain instructed the first officer to radio unreliable airspeed to ATC. However, the first officer had not switched the radio so that neither ATC could hear that transmission. According to the logic, due to the speed increase beyond the limit, the system initiated a nose-up and automatic deployment of speed brakes. However, the speed did not reduce due to the engine thrust being up. The speed brakes caused the climb to stop. The aircraft approximately maintained an altitude of 4,800 feet. The speed brakes, however, also required an increase in angle of attack. Although the controls were manually deflected to command a nose-up attitude, the elevator deflected nose down due to an active defense against excessive AOA. So it looks like the air data computer is sensing this out of parameter AOA, but that's not a good signal. That's a bad signal. The AOA is not excessive, but it thinks it is. So it's going to, it knows better than the pilots do. And so it's going to not let you bring the nose of the aircraft up. The speed brakes were fully retracted and remained in that position until impact. The throttles were moved to toga and later to idle, where they remained until impact. So, again, pilots are commanding maximum nose up. The elevators are not allowing or following that command. They were just along for the ride, basically, guys, which is really, really sad. So I guess these, Nick, Captain Nick, you flew an airplane that has pretty sophisticated air data computing systems that constantly monitor each other, and if something is giving a bad indication, it will kind of disregard that and go with the majority of signals that seem to be it seems to be receiving. But it's an airplane the modern Airbuses or airplanes that are, and most modern airplanes today have systems that are trying to protect the pilots from doing anything that might cause a crash. But it seems in this case, the AOA data was giving at least 2 of the 3 channels, and maybe all 3, was giving bad data to the computer. And so the pilots had no way to override that. And they crashed. And obviously, or it seems obvious to me, based on the letter that was put out by the one of the regulatory agencies to the people maintaining doing C checks on these airplanes, that you have to be very careful about how you are removing and replacing these sensors, these angle of attack sensors. And it sounds like they must have screwed them up. What do you all think?
Well, I agree, Jeff. Now, have I misread this? Because I was under the impression that there are only 2 angle of attack sensors.
Oh, maybe. Okay, maybe there are only 2, but
yeah, because it mentions AOA sensors 1 and 2. Oh, it does mention an AOA 3 remained at 0. Okay. So, if they use the same logic as Airbus, then 2 agreeing ones will vote out the one that is in error. But of course, we know from previous Airbus incidents that if you get an extremely rare and unusual fault, which means that you get 2 sensors that are identically giving you wrong information, and the third one is the only one giving you the correct information, that logic will actually vote out the good sensor, and you'll be flying around on 2 erroneous sensors. And I wonder if that's what happened here, if these sensors were replaced and remounted in the wrong position, which is kind of what they're suggesting from their notice warning, saying when you take these out and put them back in again, you've got to make sure they're lined up correctly. I do wonder if that was perhaps the issue, but I don't know enough about the logic behind in this aircraft. In the Airbus, you can turn off secondary flight computers. I think I've got the right ones, and which will force the aircraft into an alternate law, which will allow you to regain control. So the protections will be lost, but that would have allowed you, if this had been an Airbus, to pitch the aircraft normally. I don't know if that procedure or that kind of action was available to these pilots.
Yeah, it sounds like they were doing what they thought they needed to do in a manual control situation to fly the jet. And every time they tried to make an input to keep the airplane from diving into the ground, the airplane said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the opposite.
So if I knew a bit more about this particular machine, and perhaps you never know, we might have a pilot somewhere who listens who knows this aircraft intimately. They might be able to decipher
any SU-95 operators out there listening to the show?
You never know.
Let us know. What the heck is going on? What happened here?
Yeah, where are you?
On this side,
I haul box keys.
Yeah. Why doesn't he know something about this? Is he here? Oh, that's why. He's not here yet, is he? Okay.
But I think Neil's got a good point. He's saying, Russian aviation is in a bit of a dire state at the moment. I don't know if it's just lack of well-qualified engineers or lack of being able to make the parts well enough, or just the fact that, they're overworked and perhaps not doing a very good job. I don't know, but I suspect with the restrictions currently on Russia because of its aggressive attitude towards its neighboring countries, that's not going to get better in short time.
Probably not.
Well, and Jeff had a picture of that sensor up, and that sensor's a little bit of a human factors nightmare, right? In engineering, there's a thing called Pokio, which is a Japanese mindset, I guess. It's a Japanese thing where when they design stuff, they intentionally design features into it so you can't put things together backwards or incorrectly, right? So like if you have 4 fasteners, you may make one fastener slightly offset or something so it doesn't line up if you put it in backwards. And this is a situation where this sensor is reading radially, right? So like the most critical aspect of the installation is how it's installed radially, and you can't exactly tell how it's mounting. But if you look at like all the hole patterns that we see and everything are like radial hole patterns, so it seems like it would not be too difficult to get it indexed incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like.
No, you're quite right. I mean, it's the usual thing of if you're connecting up a left and a right connector, you should really make them unique in that the left will only go onto the left plug and the right will only go onto the right plug, just to make certain that you haven't misconnected them. So, I mean, it requires extra cost because, you've got to design individual connectors and individual plugs for anything that can be duplicated like that, which makes it more expensive. But of course, it's a way to ensure that things are put together correctly.
Yep. All right. Well, again, that was the preliminary report published in Russian, and we'll look forward to seeing the final report to see exactly what happened in this case. We're going to move on to the next item in our news, and I'm going to throw that up there. It has something to do with this aerial vehicle. Let's see. This is from the aircurrent.com. In the decade leading up to the 2023 fatal crash of a U.S. Air Force V-22 Osprey off the coast of Japan, there were 10 previously unreported in-flight V-22 component failures attributed to the same material defect that is suspected as the root cause in the crash. This persistent manufacturing problem was well known and analyzed by manufacturer Bell Boeing and the V-22 Joint Program Office. Yet pilots were not given information about a systemic and ongoing risk to the Osprey fleet that could have changed how they responded to in-flight indications of possible failures, according to the documents received by the Air Current. And when I was reading about this and starting to do some prep work for our show, I'm thinking, hey, I know somebody that has some real-world, real-life experience in the V-22 Osprey. And Armando, that's in addition to the fact that we love you and you're just a great guy and very knowledgeable about many, many things, we thought that you'd be the guy to go to kind of cover this aircraft accident investigation from the U.S. Air Force. So you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, actually, you're not wrong, Jeff. It is a CV-22. The Air Force version is a CV-22. Okay. The Marines and the Navy fly the V-22. Yeah, so you're well over 51% there.
Oh, good. Yay.
Yeah. So this mishap report, obviously our community is pretty small. I spent 10 years as a special mission aviator on the Osprey there. It's a super small community, so they just released this report in the last couple of days. And I didn't know any of the individuals on board the aircraft, but I served in these units, and it's there's really only a couple hundred people worldwide that operate it. And additionally, I actually do know 2 of the leaders that had to do the safety outbriefs on this, including the Lieutenant General Barnfind, who commissioned the Safety Investigation Board. So this has been making its way around our community in the past couple of days. So I'll try to keep it, as brief as possible. Obviously, the report is, just the executive report is 49 pages. The actual report is, thousands and thousands of pages. But the Osprey in question, and there's some key parts that are kind of going to play into the mishap later down the road. But this was a 2-ship So formation of two aircraft, two V-22s. The mission was to go from Yokota Air Base in sort of northern Japan out to Kadena Air Base, which is down in Okinawa, one of the islands down there, with a stop in Iwakuni about halfway. So it's about 300 miles to Iwakuni, and then another 400 miles over open water out to Kadena in Okinawa. There was a third ship that was a spare, and that came into play a little bit later, with some planned aerial refueling. Now, the crew and the mission was part of an exercise that they were doing, while the training scenario was a normal training scenario that we might run sort of day to day, which includes aerial refueling, some hover work, some takeoffs, landings, maybe some instrument approaches. It's all kind of all in a day's work type thing. So there was nothing out of the ordinary as far as the training scenario went. So the Osprey, everybody, when we used to go to the air shows and things like that, people were, what a complicated machine. It is a complicated machine, but it's really, as a helicopter, it's a pretty good helicopter. As an airplane, it's a pretty good turboprop airplane. It does get a little bit complicated in the way they have geared everything together. So in its sort of most simple explanation, it's got two engines. It is turboprop engines. It's got Allison engines, or now Rolls-Royce. Allison got sold to Rolls-Royce a few years ago. One engine is capable of turning both rotors, and the rotors are designed to turn simultaneously. The picture that Jeff has up right now, if you're listening to the audio podcast, I'm going to try to take you on a little adventure here on how the hundreds of gears that have to run this, similar to the gears in a car, like a transmission. There's a series of clutches. There's some parts of the gears work like a differential in a car. So it's only complicated because the amount of gears, the number of gears that are turning this. The rotors themselves kind of sit on a mast, and that mast goes through the middle of a planetary gear assembly. So it's got a bunch of, I think it's 5 planetary gears and then one sort of sun gear in the middle. They call that the bull gear. The engine is actually is offset from the mast. So it's not like a direct drive like a turbofan engine. It's not a direct drive like a piston engine on a small aircraft. The engine is actually offset, and all of that power, the 6,000 horsepower that's going from the engine, is turning actually one of the through an input quill, like one of the series of gears that's turning the planetary assembly. It loses a lot of power. Only about 4,000 horsepower makes it to the planetary assembly because of how many gears are turning. Wow. On the other side of that, that's where another shaft coming out of the planetary gear assembly. Cue the rickets, right? Like,
no, this is good stuff. Good stuff.
That's linked through in the same engine nacelle to a tilt-axis gearbox, and then from there, you can imagine that's what runs through the wing, the short stubby wings on the Osprey, to a mid-wing gearbox, and that's turning everything together. That's a flexible shaft going through there. So while each engine is actually making 6,200-ish horsepower, only about 2,500 horsepower is making it to the actual prop rotor. The prop rotor part of it is similar to a helicopter, so it's got a shaft going through it. It's got a swash plate, so it can balance each blade individually. And the failure happened in that main part that goes from the center part of the bull ring, the bull gear, to the mast that actually turns the propeller. So it was not an engine failure per se. It was actually a failure of the gear assembly. Okay, thanks for riding with me on that little adventure. Yeah. Now, from a pilot point of view, any of us that have flown turbine engines or turbine engines, anytime you get a chip light it is indicative that there is metal being made somewhere in the engine, and in most aircraft, that is there's a procedure associated that usually results in a land as soon as possible, as soon as practical type thing. There's a uniqueness to this Rolls-Royce engine in that each engine has 3 chip sensors, which you've got the picture up right there. But the Rolls-Royce engine actually has a way, if metal is detected, generally about 1/10 of a millimeter, it can shoot a series of electrical pulses through that chip detector to burn off that metal so it doesn't contaminate. So it is magnetically captured by the chip sensor, and then it captures it and then tries to attack it and literally burning off the chips, so it doesn't go back.
So they're not going to harm all the gears and everything else and cause more catastrophic damage.
Correct. So
Does that system also get rid of that chip so that it can subsequently detect the next chip, or would that be happening anyway?
well, yeah, actually, you can see in one of the pictures there, it does burn it off, but there's still a little bit of residue left over because it's metal melting. So while the head of the chip detector is still there, it does kind of start getting a buildup of metal, melted metal around the top of the chip detector.
And these chips, Armando, what is the source of these chips? Or is it a universal thing, or is it specifically coming from one particular area? Like, are these gear teeth that are
Yep.
chipping? Is that what's
Exactly. So
happening?
different
Okay.
different metals, and there's a normal tolerance of metal shavings when you have so many gears, so many splines and teeth on all these gears. There's actually a normal amount. So much so that a prop rotor gearbox chip burn is a white advisory. And if you get a chip burn light, it actually means it is a successful burn, and it says, I'm okay. That actually plays into the mishap because on the second half of their mission, they had taken off from Iwakuni, mostly open water. They got a first chip burn light, which is just that, acknowledge it. Yep, okay, chip burn. They got a
Is
second.
that pretty common to see that?
It's relatively common where it's not even an abnormal procedure. It's just an advisory.
Okay.
And there are maintenance processes that check these periodically, right? Just like you
Okay.
would cut the oil filter on a piston engine every
So at this point,
25
it's
hours.
not unusual. Oh, we got a chip burn. Okay, noted.
Nope.
We'll let them know, and they'll do something maintenance wise to take
Correct.
care of that.
And press on with the mission.
Right.
And actually, you bring up a really good point there. In the human factors to this mishap, there was something that where the aircraft commander, the captain of that aircraft, was actually the mission commander for that trip, also for the 3 ship. So in the investigation board, they kind of highlighted how having those competing priorities in one person's head, any person's head, may have precluded the crew from taking more cautious action because there's that pressure to succeed, right? And that's a takeaway for civilian pilots. The get-there-itis that we talk about in CRM, the must get there. It's my car just stumbled, or like you driving the road vessel, like, oh man, I just heard an engine stumble. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and press on and get to Murfreesboro, where I know there's dealerships, right?
Right. Mission completion. That's number one.
That's it. So you have the pilot, the aircraft commander is also the mission commander, and I'll stop there to talk about the crew. So there's the pilot, the co-pilot. They had an additional pilot, sort of a relief pilot, 2 special mission aviators, which is what I was. One was sitting in the flight engineer position, one in the tail scanner position. Think of them as a loadmaster gunner or load gungineer. There was a DISO, a direct support operator, which if you think about like B1s, it's like a weapon systems operator. They're more defensive systems. and then 2 medical personnel that were part of the exercise. These are everybody was very highly trained U.S. Air Force Special Operations type people. Everybody was fully qualified, no training going on. So as they were flying, the failures started happening with when they got the prop rotor gearbox chip slight. That means unsuccessful burns. At that point, the flight engineer says, hey, we've met our threshold. Now we've gone from monitor to a land as soon as practical situation. So they started discussing, still not an emergency, still not, master warnings going off. So they started talking about some divert fields, and they made a choice. As a crew, they made a choice that they would go to, I think it's Yukushima, which was still probably 70 miles away or something like that from their current location. At that point, they did make a turn towards that airfield, and started kind of talking about what they were going to do when it's a commercial airfield, no military. They got on the radio on the satellite phones, started getting that spare Osprey, and said, hey, we're going to Yukushima. Why don't you guys generate the spare aircraft with a maintenance team and have them meet us down there in Yukushima. So they've already committed in their heads to, we're going to fly to this 6,000 foot runway at a place that we've picked, and we know we can get help there. Kind of like trying to make it to the Mercedes dealership, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to stopping.
This is one of their pre-planned divert airport locations, right?
Yeah. I mean, they I've told a lot of people that, believe it or not, we fly with a 4-flight. So we fly with 4-flight and a Stratus on board all the aircraft. Sometimes that's just easier than going through all the menus of the MFDs and all that stuff. Plus the databases overseas are not fully populated. So 4-flight is actually an easier tool, especially when you're overseas, because you can just bring up civilian charts. So they had committed to going to this place.
Although I don't know if you're going to mention, there were a couple of other places they could have gone, which were much closer. But they, at this point, they don't think it's a degree of urgency that is not like super urgent. It's like, okay, something is not right. We need to land as soon as practical, I think is the term they're using at this point, right?
Yep.
And instead of land as like as soon as you can.
Yeah, there's 3
higher urgency.
There's 3 levels: land as soon as practical, which is you can continue on. There's land as soon as possible, which is find a suitable airfield where you can get maintenance help. And then there's land immediately criteria, which is put it down on a field or something. They had not met that threshold.
Okay.
So they had gone. They were already diverting. They were going to Yukushima, and here's where the article started kind of insinuating that there is information that had not been passed to the pilots or any crew. So everybody acted within the bounds of policy, of current policy directives and regulations. There is this condition where all of that metal, Captain Nick, that you asked about, that had melted onto the chip detectors, that created an advisory, actually a caution, that said chip detector fail. Therefore, in their minds, they took this sort of abnormal condition, not really an emergency, and they chalked it up to, oh, well, there's no way that we would have had 5 successful chip burns and chip lights. The chip detector must be faulty because we just got a chip detector fail. That is a condition that was not until this mishap in our TOs, in our technical orders. Nothing said that when it gets overloaded with this molten metal, it will result in a chip detector fail. So the crew actually almost took a breath of relief, saying, oh, it was just a failure of the chip detector. So at that point, even their diversion sense of urgency kind of relaxed a little bit. and that was evidenced by the fact that they did a leisurely pattern into the terminal area there at Yukushima. There was a commercial airliner taking off, so they went into a downwind pattern and actually did a 360. Meanwhile, the prop rotor gearbox is disintegrating slowly because they had gotten this chip detector fail. They said, okay, it must just be a sensor thing.
So just to put it in sort of airline pilot speak, Armando, this would be like getting a firelight and then the firelight goes out. So you think, oh, that's great, we put the fire out. Little do you realize that the reason the firelight's gone out is because the fire is so intense, it's completely burnt through the fire detector wire.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which is a common simulator scenario that they give us, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did this, they were in a relaxed mode. And as they transitioned to the base leg from aircraft mode, which is your nacelles and your propellers, your prop rotors are horizontal like a turboprop, they started transitioning to conversion mode, so 60-degree nacelle up, which slows the aircraft down, makes a lot of lift, but is slowly turning it into sort of a helicopter mode. At that point of that conversion to 60-degree nacelle from horizontal, there was so much load on this disintegrating prop rotor gearbox that it was at that point that it sheared all of oh gosh.
Wow.
It sheared.
That's very, very dramatic. What you just did there.
Yeah.
Sound effects.
Sheared the
Sorry.
microphone off your desk.
Yeah, at that point, it sheared all of the teeth from the bull gear. There was one of the planetary gear, the pinion gears, fractured completely, and at that point, there was, as the report said, no crew actions could have recovered from the catastrophic failure because it wasn't an engine failure. We can fly single engine all day long, but there's no torque being put on that prop rotor, so it started just free flowing. And once they go out of sync, the aircraft went into a left roll. They were on the base leg, so they were only at 800 feet AGL, wow. And they went right into the water.
When the nacelles are completely in turboprop mode and horizontal, I guess you would say, or I don't know.
Yep.
Can they actually, if they're on the ground, is there clearance for that? Is that wing high enough for for those things? No, they have to be like angled up a little bit so they're not hitting the surface.
If they're turning, yeah.
Okay.
And is there actually if you lose drive from one engine, the other engine will provide it, but is there actually a double engine failure drill that allows you to force land the aircraft?
We do. It is a 9,000 foot per minute descent profile.
Wow.
So you just,
okay.
In a double engine failure, you would just point it at the ground, try to get as much airflow over those stubby wings. And in the last sort of
Just try and
1,000
cushion the impact.
feet, try to cushion it. You can glide it a little bit, but you have to have a bunch of speed because the wings are so short. Okay. The flaps are the ailerons. The ailerons are the flaps. They're actually flaperons. They're generally automatic. So they're doing, in airplane mode, they're doing the work automatically of that, of an aileron and flap at the same time.
All right.
So
presumably there is going to be an awful lot of re-education about the importance of and the way to interpret these chip detector indications, presumably.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there was a lot of discussion in the safety report about the crew reaction from a crew resource management standpoint, where they could have, and I think, the reason we do these safety investigation boards and all these safety reports that we talk about on these shows, we wait for years, it's so we can prevent future outcomes. And this was something that we just didn't know about. So the crew actions now for, and CRM is this weird thing, right? And in the military, we go through yearly CRM refresher training, and it's so easy to say while you're sitting in a classroom table with 10 of your cohorts, what you would do or what you think you would do, or that I would speak up and this is what I would say, and well these guys, but in the heat of battle, all of you guys, Captain Nick, I'm sure you've had moments where you've wanted to say something but you don't, or I'm sure you've flown with first officers, both of you, Nick and Jeff, that defer to your guys' experience, sheer experience, and they're a new first officer and they want to say something but they won't. Nick Camacho, right? Flying these antique warbirds, you defer to some of these old guys, or there's a lot of just sitting in a classroom. I know I say that I would do this. I think that I would do this, but when you're actually sitting in the flight deck, it is really hard. And there were 8 people on that aircraft that could have said, hey guys, our mission today is not that serious. It's not that critical. It's a training mission. We're just going to, let's get this airplane on the ground. And that was highlighted as a failure of the crew, a big CRM failure.
Can I just ask you another question, if I may, Armando? The fact you made a point of saying that the pilot, the captain in this aircraft, was also the mission commander. In my military experience, one of the captains of one of the aircraft is always going to be leading the mission. That happens all the time. Or is this something different that we're talking about?
Yeah, it's we would kind of consider that a formation commander. There's a lead aircraft. If you're in a single seat aircraft or 2-seat aircraft, there's always a lead. In this case, this flight of 3, they were part of this exercise, and they had tasked this aircraft commander with mission commander duties, which also includes the logistics of getting your 3 crews there, the logistics of coordinating on the ground with your partner nation, Japanese forces, and your diplomatic clearances and your flight clearances and all that stuff. So that he was just saddled with these extra duties that could have been taken on by an additional pilot that wasn't in the seat.
No, I understand. Who would normally have taken on those duties then if it wasn't one of the captains?
You could certainly just assign somebody either on the ground to do it, or just
right.
This crew actually had an additional pilot on board. They were transiting there. So,
so it was completely unnecessary for this captain to be saddled with these additional duties.
Right. And then put in the aircraft commander. Put him in the right seat.
Yeah.
There's no problem, right? I mean, everybody's, we don't have pilots and co-pilots. Everybody's the same rank and everybody's qualified in all the positions. So instead of putting him in the left seat, they could have put him in the right seat, or they could have put him in the back.
Now, the investigation determined that the gearbox failure was most likely initiated by cracking in a high-speed pinion gear and its associated bearing cage. Although investigators were unable to conclusively determine the cause of the cracking, they speculated that it may have been the result of an inclusion, which is a foreign substance within the raw steel material that creates a weak point. So they were thinking that in the process of creating these gears and cages, there was something that a foreign substance somehow got on there. And I guess it's such a tiny thing that it's very difficult to find this in the manufacturing and the quality control process. But they did mention here that it wasn't just the V-22 or CV-22 that had these potential inclusions in these gears and stuff like that. They mentioned that when we covered this, I'm not sure exactly how many years ago it was, but it was a United, I believe, 767 taking off out of Chicago O'Hare. The right engine had a massive failure and explosion, fire, and there's a picture of the right side of the aircraft there. It was so intense that it actually melted that wing as it's drooping down to the ground. And they're thinking that one of the turbine components was manufactured from this type of metal. What do they call it? A steel alloy called X53. And they also said that well, I used to call these things Cobras or Super Cobras, but I guess they're now called Vipers. The AH-1 is another airplane or helicopter that uses this type of material. Looks like we lost Armando, but maybe he'll be back. So, they talked about also the fact that that there were several other instances of this inclusion or flaw showing up, and I thought this paragraph right here was kind of interesting, guys. In numerical terms, the definition of remote. So they talked about, they analyzed the fact they knew that there was a probable problem with inclusions in the X53 material, and there were several formal safety assessments of the risks of this, and they said they thought that this was something that was highly unlikely to occur or fail. They called it remote, meaning it could be reasonably expected to occur during the lifetime of the V-22's fleet. In numerical terms, the definition of remote corresponded to a probability of at least one event per million flight hours, a likelihood far higher than the one event per billion flight hours that's a standard in commercial aviation. I thought that was pretty amazing, the definition
Oh, absolutely.
of the risk being remote and how it compares with the commercial aviation world.
But I mean, in the military world, it's quite usual to have a higher level of risk than you have in the civilian world because of the very nature of what you're doing. You can't put the same amount of safety factors in. You can't build all those additional bits of kit that are going to save you, which is one of the reasons we have damned ejector seats in most of our things. I don't think this machine does, though. But no, I see exactly where you're going, and I don't know if it's acceptable for the material to be potentially flawed in this way, but it seems like it's a really difficult process making the type of steel that they do to create these amazing gearboxes. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, and if you compare that to all military aircraft, right? I mean, we're on the cutting edge of metal alloys and additive engineering and additive manufacturing. Some of these things were really just on the discovery phase on how to manufacture these materials. But I mean, inclusions go all the way back to Kinner engines back in the 1910s, right? I mean, you get a flawed batch of steel or aluminum, and that whole batch of crankcases comes apart.
Yeah. I noticed they used triple melted alloys. Is that like triple cooked chips?
Or like a twice baked potato?
Yeah, triple cooked fries. You get those over there? Yeah.
I guess we have that. Or is that like twice cooked pork? No, that's only twice cooked, not triple cooked.
Well, you do it 3 times and it's really bad for you.
Uh-oh.
Well, there's bourbons, right, that you can triple cask.
There you go.
My signal was dropping there, but now it looks like I'm back.
I'm back.
Just a quick aside, technical podcast thing. Well, I was going to say Steph has joined us, but before I do that, I was going to say, Armando, let's make sure that before you completely shut off from StreamYard, that your recording is uploaded. It should be uploading just now in the background, so you might get some kind of a warning there before you completely leave StreamYard just to make sure, because I think I'm going to have to use those backup recordings.
I will do my best.
Yeah, so I think you need to exit the stream, but don't close the window. So like remove yourself from the stream and let it run for 2 or 3 minutes, and that should do it.
Okay, we'll see how that works. I'm on an iPhone.
Yeah,
So.
hopefully, yeah. I'm not sure exactly how it works with an iPhone, but we'll find out, I guess. Anyway, so as I said, look who has joined us. It is Dr. Steph. Yay.
Hey guys, I
Welcome.
did listen to a lot of that discussion. That was excellent. Yeah, sorry, just got home from work and then had some, speaking of technical things, technical difficulties on my end. Not sure what's going on with my computer, but it's kind of on the struggle bus today. Doesn't seem to be anything specific. I think it is actually. It's like 5 years old, which doesn't seem like it should be that old, but best I can tell, it thinks it's hot, but it's not at all. And the fan is running like crazy, and I can't even get it to, I can't do anything to get it to change. It's much quieter now than it was after I turned it off and just let it do nothing for a little bit. But we'll see what happens. I only have like my internet browser running and nothing else. So
Okay.
hopefully.
Need to get
you need
something
to
with that.
listen out on the 9th of September, because that's when
Yes.
all will be revealed.
All the new
Mr.
things, all the
Apple.
fancy things.
Yeah,
Yes.
that will mostly be the
Phones.
phone, of course.
Yeah.
But they're thinking in October there will be some maybe new Mac Minis and some other things with the M4 chip. So you should jump from the Intel world to the Apple Silicon world. I think you'll be very happy.
Yeah. I don't even know what this Mac has anymore. But anyway, not for, don't need to discuss that any further on this show. So as long as everything works.
So I'm looking at, we have several more items in the news here, one of which is the item regarding the avgas. Maybe we should cover that, and then we can go quickly to getting to know us, and then Armando can take off. Do you think you'll have time to quickly discuss this one, Armando? And then, okay, great.
Yes, sir.
So let me read this one here. This is 01E. This is from AvWeb, avweb.com. The California legislature passes a leaded avgas ban. California is a governor's signature away from banning leaded aviation gasoline statewide. Political Pro is reporting the California State Senate on Thursday passed a bill that would outlaw the fuel starting in 2031. California is the first state to pass a leaded fuel ban. Several other states have similar legislation moving through their legislatures. The Senate vote passed 30-8. The day before, the House passed the bill, SB 1193, sponsored by Democratic Senator Caroline Menjivar, by 59-11. It now goes to Governor Gavin Newsom to sign. He could veto it, but based on the two votes, it would pass anyway with the required 2/3 majority to defeat a veto. Newsom has until September 30th to sign or veto the bill. The bill was a compromise in that Menjivar's bill proposed a phase-out starting in 2026 based on a complicated formula for determining health risk. The amended measure is an unequivocal measure that would ban airport operators and any public or private entity that offer aviation gasoline from selling or distributing leaded fuel starting in 2031. The delay resulted from pushback from aviation groups who argued an earlier deadline would threaten safety because a substitute fuel would not be widely available in time. The End Aviation Gasoline Lead Emissions, EAGLE, that's clever, initiative has been given until 2030 to come up with a drop-in replacement fuel that completely satisfies the fuel requirements for piston aircraft. So I don't really have much knowledge to really talk much about aviation or avgas, but we have a few people here on the panel that have experience with airplanes that use avgas. And so Camacho, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so I think we've talked about leaded fuel a couple of times. And, you know, the without being too blunt, I think most of the older people in the audience remember driving around in their automobiles with leaded fuel. And we managed to get rid of that, at least in the United States. I think everywhere, probably in the world, automobiles are running on unleaded fuel now. In aviation here in the United States, we're still using 100 low lead. So that's 100 octane fuel with a tetraethyl lead additive to assist in with like detonation issues. And so there's now a big push, or there has been a growing push to try to move the industry away from using leaded fuels. There are a number of issues with them. Obviously, there are health concerns associated with the lead in leaded fuels. There are some supply chain issues. I think there is only one company that is currently manufacturing the tetraethyl lead additive that they use in 100 low lead, and I think they're in the UK. So I think we can point the root of this issue to the guy over there. But there is concern.
That's okay. We'll fix this problem. We'll just turn off the supply. Then
so that's right, and that's one of the big concerns. Is it's such an uphill battle, probably rightfully so from an environmental standpoint, to make the stuff that people are saying, well, what if there's only one company that makes it? What happens if they go out of business or pushed out of business, or something happens to them?
Well, legislated, which is quite likely to happen over here now.
Right. Additionally, there are a bunch of negative side effects of operating an engine with leaded gas. The leaded additive fouls spark plugs, and it just generally burns dirtier. So you have dirtier fuel. You get junk on your engine parts. So there's a billion reasons, right, to try to get away from leaded fuel. The problem is the aviation industry moves at the speed of snail, as we all know. Armando and I both, and Steph, all fly airplanes that are still powered by engines that are akin to like 1930s tractor engines, right? That operate with magnetos and carburetors or mechanical fuel injection. So it's very difficult to get the aviation industry to move forward. Some of that is because of the increased threshold for safety that's required, right? Like when people started putting unleaded fuel in their car, as they had engine issues, they would have to pull over to the side, and then it's like the equivalent of what people are going through with electric vehicles, right? Like 90% of the electric vehicle integration into society is going well. And then there's like 5 or 10% of them that are having battery issues or whatnot. But when something happens, they pull over, they get their car towed back to the dealer. It's a relatively uneventful situation. With airplanes, obviously that doesn't work. You've got to make sure that the solution that you provide is completely viable from a safety standpoint, as well as how you market it and everything. I was telling Jeff before the show, I tried to read, so I've been halfway following the unleaded fuel saga or soap opera that is occurring in the United States. I tried to catch up to an appropriate level of research last night. And after a couple hours, I wasn't really as well versed as I was hoping I would be. But to give like a broad view, in like 2018-ish, I think, the FAA said, we're going to put this thing forward called the Eagle Initiative, which was, as Jeff mentioned, the Eliminate Aviation Gasoline Lead Emissions Initiative. And that was their effort to try to make inroads in terms of providing an unleaded fuel for aviation engines. And there were a couple of ways that could happen. There was this a subset, I guess, of that thing was called PAFI, which is the Piston Engine Aviation Fuels Initiative, or PAFI. And this was they were trying to determine the best way to roll out a new industry-wide fuel. They basically said that there were two paths to do it. You could either take this fleet-wide approach where you do all the work in the background and try to roll your fuel out to a level where the FAA says, oh yeah, this is good. This is a direct replacement for 100 low lead. So there's no paperwork associated on the aircraft model level or the ownership level. Or you could work to obtain an STC for your new fuel and roll it out via STC. So that second route has existed for a long time. There are a lot of low compression airplanes. The Luscombe that my dad has that I fly has an STC to allow it to run on auto fuel, which means the airplane was certificated to run on either 8087 avgas or 100 low lead or 100 straight lead or 115, 145. That engine was not, but it was certificated to run on one thing. And then at some point, somebody did all the engineering to say, well, if you put 87 or 89 octane car gas in this engine, it'll also run fine. And so that's approved via a supplemental type certificate. The downside of that is basically a single airplane solution. So if you have 100, let's say Bonanzas, and a manufacturer says, all right, I'm going to create an STC for this. Each Bonanza has to go buy the STC paperwork or obtain the STC paperwork for their airplane to be able to use it. So that's the downside of this STC process, or the second process.
It's expensive, isn't it?
It can be, right? So like there are STCs that they basically provide the paperwork for free because they make the money on the parts. So like when you buy the parts, it's like batteries, right? Like if you put a Concorde battery in an airplane, they're STC'd, but you get the STC when you buy the battery. So that's one way to do it. A lot of other places sell the paperwork itself. So anyway, that all seems straightforward until we get to a couple years ago where there's a company in Oklahoma called General Aviation Modifications Incorporated, or GAMI. They had been working, I'm sorry, let me step back here. And so that first bullet where they're looking for fleet-wide acceptance, at some point they said, we're going to use an ASTM standard. So there's ASTM, which is a society of some sort, and it's industry people getting together and saying, here are the things that we are, expecting to see. Here are the problems we need to solve. And here are the ways that we want to manage transportation, storage, all that sort of stuff. And so GAMI, a company who had started working towards an unleaded solution prior to all of this Eagle initiative stuff starting, they opted to go ahead and go down the STC route because they felt like a bunch of their work that they had already done to get approved would not, basically, like, they wouldn't get credit for it. They'd have to start over or redo some of their work. So they got STC approval and they started with a couple of airplanes. And I believe now they have like an AML that covers all airplanes. So basically you can go, and I think the STC is like $500. So you can go pay $500, you can get the STC, and like any airplane running a Continental or Lycoming engine, I don't know all the details, but I believe any airplane running a Continental or Lycoming engine certificated for 100 low lead can use that STC.
And is it just paperwork, or do they actually do something to the engine?
It's just paperwork. Yeah. The fuel is a drop-in replacement. I mean, that's how it was engineered, right? Because otherwise you have to keep track of the problem if it's not a drop-in replacement, right, is we're not going to, the infrastructure for only running on one or the other is probably not going to happen for a really long time. So if you have an STC that says, if you replace these 3 parts in your engine, you can run the or you can run the unleaded G100UL is what it's called. But you lose the capability to run 100 low lead. It really limits the functionality of your airplane.
Mhm.
So they basically did all of this work. And what they have is basically like a formulation for fuel that they have patented. So they can now license the right to manufacture that fuel to refineries or fuel manufacturers, or however that industry works, which I'm not super familiar with. And then, so, theoretically, if somebody's selling that G100UL for, say, $5 or something, for every $5 a gallon, maybe there's 5 cents for every gallon or something that's going back to this company that created it. In addition, they make money selling the STC.
So the bottom line is this something that you think has a good chance of happening in the next 5 years?
Well, so the problem is that that there are politics involved, right? So there are all these big oil or petroleum companies that don't particularly want to see this guy succeed because they don't want him to get into the circle, I guess. That is one thought that's being put out there, because he's not getting the ASTM certification. So all this legislature basically is dependent on a commercially viable alternative being available. So the G100UL company announced maybe 3 months ago that there was a refinery somewhere down south, Louisiana or Florida or something, that brewed up 1 million gallons of this stuff. So there's 1 million gallons of it sitting there, but there are no airports that are willing to sell it yet. So there's not really any way. There's one guy on the Bonanza board that literally got set up as a vendor, and he is going to truck it himself back to his airport to use in his airplane. But there's no reasonable way to sell it on a level where it'll make a difference. So then we get into all of this crazy legislative stuff, and I say crazy legislative stuff because the thing that Jeff just read is the state of California, and the California government has been working very hard to ban 100 low lead. They've already got it. I believe Reed Hillview and maybe San Jose International. There's a couple of airports in the Bay Area that they already can't sell 100 low lead at. So now they have this bill that says, I think it was 2031, right? Passed a bill that would outlaw the fuel starting in 2031. Well, so then if you go back and look at the latest FAA reauthorization bill, which was approved in April. So that's a federal document from the federal government, right? That's our Congress funding the FAA. And when they fund the FAA, they say, here are all the things you have to do in order to get your funding. If you go into that and read section 770, which is grant assurances, that section says, this section requires that airports that offered 100 octane low lead aviation gasoline for sale in 2022 to continue offering such gasoline for sale until the earlier of 2030 or the date on which a FAA certified unleaded aviation gasoline alternative can be made available for purchase or use by general aviation aircraft operators at airports subject to certain conditions. So that's basically the federal government saying you can't stop selling 100 low lead until there's a commercially viable alternative available, or 2030. So the California legislation and the federal legislation kind of bump into each other pretty close there. Not a lot of overlap. So then that introduces this commercially viable question, right? So the question becomes, is the existing fuel that's available via STC considered a commercially viable fuel? And basically the fuel consortium and some of the alphabet groups associated with aviation support are saying it's not a commercially viable fuel because you have to buy an STC for it. It's not readily available to be put into the airplane, and it's not available at airports. So it ends up generating all of this like huge amounts of friction to get that fuel into airports, right? Because all these airports who might say like, oh yeah, we'll run a truck, like we'll buy a couple thousand gallons every month and we'll put it in a truck, and that'll just like let people make the decision. Now it gets a little more cloudy because at some threshold, will that create an understanding that it is now a commercially available fuel? And then will that trigger all of these airports to have to immediately switch over from 100 low lead to an unleaded alternative? So
sounds like a big mess.
I think that's all I have on it, which is like when you hear like they want to get rid of leaded fuel, you're like, obviously that's a good idea. And then when you start digging into it, then like
It's not such
politics and special interests and everything get involved, and it very quickly spirals out of control, like everything else in our world.
Yeah. Wow. Anything that anybody else on the panel wants to add to this? Armando? No?
Well, this all just sounds like it's going to cost me money.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Fortunately,
Yeah,
I believe
luckily-
Armando's airplane is an experimental airplane, right? So you
I'm
could put
experimental, and I have
jet
a
fuel in your
7-to-1
airplane while the
pistons.
FAA cares. Yeah.
Yeah, I could just go to. I've got 7-to-1 pistons, so I've got a 87 octane approval on my
Compatible.
0320. So like, I'm just gonna, if this all happens and somehow my airport stops selling 100 low lead, probably just somehow figure out my own way to tank my own fuel to the airport.
I
All
don't
right.
have
From
a
an
lot to-
outsider's point of view, it seems like the fuel actually isn't the problem. You can drop the fuel in, as you so eloquently put, into an awful lot of engines, and eventually every engine. It's the paperwork. And what a nightmare to have this whole thing just, entangled in what appears to be legislation. Am I getting the wrong idea there?
No,
think
but I
that's-
think like Camacho was saying, it's a little bit different just because of the certification testing and just making sure that for every engine or system that's out there, it's going to work as intended. It's a little bit different than, if you put something that's new fuel-wise in a car and it just stops running, you don't want that to happen in an aircraft. Obviously.
Oh, you're bound to lose a few, If you're going to take the beaches, you're bound to lose a few.
It can't be any worse than the amount of people that run their airplanes out of gas, which also
That's
result in
likely-
the same outcome.
Good
Yeah.
point.
So-
Good point. Yes.
I didn't know
It's
this,
all
but while
relative.
Nick was talking, I was reading up a little bit on tetraethyl lead because it's been a while since I'd refreshed any knowledge of it for myself. But it sounds like the current formulation of 100 low lead here in the U.S. contains 2.12 grams per gallon, and that's actually twice as much as what was permitted in automotive gas when it was leaded prior to 1988. So it's actually a fair amount of lead, and all of that just is released in emissions, and lead is quite toxic to human beings. So
Yep. Quite right.
Well, and that's low lead fuel also.
Yes, that's low
Like,
lead.
They
That's
used to
not-
have 100 and 100 low lead. So
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry.
theoretically, the 100.
Was that a
I don't.
hint?
I don't know because it was before my time. But theoretically, the 100 octane fuel had even more.
it had 4.24
lead.
grams per gallon,
Right.
which is
Yeah,
twice
there
the
you
amount.
go.
Yeah, more than twice the amount.
You'd be better off licking the walls of your lead-painted
Yep.
house, yeah? Well done.
So Micah had a couple of comments here. He said lead also provides engine lubrication and keeps the seals from cracking. Do they have a way to resolve that? Yeah. So I don't think the engine lubrication issue is as critical anymore with modern oils and additives. I don't think there is nearly as much reliance on lead for engine lubrication. I know that like with hard valve seats and stuff they used to have back in the day, that was more of a concern. I don't explicitly know how they're managing that, but the fact that we're running engines on modern 87 octane car gas leads me to believe that's not an issue, as well as all these unleaded fuels are getting approved. So there's 94 UL, which I think is a Swift fuel. That is a unleaded fuel that I think has partial approval. I don't know very much about it. And then, like I said, the G100 UL has blanket approval, I think, for everything. And I've had friends run it in Bonanzas and Barons that I know. I know that they've run it in something as large as an A26. So that's a pair of R2800 radial engines, making loads of power, and they didn't seem to have any issues with it. So those are all things. I agree with your statement, Micah. I think that we have solved many of those issues with other technologies, more modern oils and additives, and then more modern seals and gaskets. And then he also said, how long is aviation gas good for? Aviation gasoline is good for far longer than car gas. And again, that goes back to being part of that ASTM spec that they're trying to define how stable it is and how you store it, how you transport it, and all of that sort of stuff. But that is a good point. There is a difference between the stability of gasoline that you get from a car pump versus aviation gasoline. And so I don't know how they're solving that one. Theoretically, they're solving it somehow. I think he's doing that on purpose.
He is. I think it's just filler. Maybe.
He just keeps talking. This is great.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Probably hear me.
Yes.
I said, hey, so I'm hearing this voice in my earphones, and that means that our producer, Liz, is back with us, and she's going to take over running the slides and
Thank
everything
the
else.
Lord.
So that's why the applause was running there while I was yapping away and you couldn't hear anything out of my mouth. Sorry about that.
I thought you were
All
just
right,
glad
so
that the conversation about AFGAS was finally wrapped up.
I'm happy about that.
I thought
too.
we were applauding Nick Camacho's expert analysis.
Yes,
I was
that's
clapping
exactly
over
what
here.
it
too.
was.
That's
very good.
Okay,
I was very
let's
impressed.
do that again. And yes, thank you, Camacho, for
Yeah,
that
good job.
wonderful
Excellent.
analysis, or whatever you want to call it, analysis. And so now it is time for us to get to the one of the favorite parts of the show for me, and that's getting to know us. And thanks, Armando, for still hanging with us. I know they're probably trying to kick you out of that undisclosed dealership, car dealership in the Charlotte area. But so we're just going to quickly go to you, because it's been a while since you've been with us on the show. And we mentioned in the intro that you are a biplane owner. Now, I took a nice ride in your Super Cub, but as far as I recall, it only had one, well, a left and right wing, but it wasn't a biplane, it was a monoplane. So tell us about what's going on with your airplane purchases.
Yeah, so this actually goes all the way back to when I was flying that DC-3, that Basler, because before I went in, I was coming out of the Air Force. I had flown small general aviation, and I had asked around what is the hardest airplane that I could take off and land to get my tail wheel legs back under me. And everybody said, well, go fly a Stearman. So I found a Stearman at my local airport and paid the guy a bunch of money and got a whole Stearman checkout before I went to go train at Basler on the DC-3. Well, my issue was I also bought Megan a couple rides in the Stearman. So my wife,
I remember that.
once she flew the Stearman, she took 2 rides, and her third one was an aerobatic ride. And after that, she said, "We're going open cockpit."
Yay.
So that was all the approval that I needed from my spousal unit. And I put the Super Cruiser for sale and found a beautiful biplane that I've been flying around. Believe it or not, it's just under a year, and I've already got almost 100 hours on it. So, just a great little airplane. It's a
Let's
HATS.
see the picture of this thing here. Liz is going to pop up the slide of this beautiful biplane.
Ooh, it's pretty.
Where do you sit? I mean, how do you fit in that thing? Good Lord. It's tiny.
Well, I don't know. You're a tall guy. There's no top.
My
Nick,
head
so
would
you
be
would be
sticking
fine.
above the top wing.
You'd have
You would
good
be a little bit
visibility
like
then.
Harry and the Hendersons. Yeah.
But
Just put on
so if
some
you're sitting
goggles.
in
You'd
the
be all
back-
right.
If you're sitting in the back, you're actually aft of where that upper wing is, right?
Correct. Yeah. There's nothing above you sitting in the pilot seat in the back.
Yeah.
But you can't see anything out the front like any other tail dragger or other biplane.
Okay.
So it's pretty awesome to take off and land. But flying through the air is awesome because there's literally nothing above you.
That's awesome.
Now, getting into the front seat can be a little bit of a contortionist act. So you got to kind of squeeze in there and get but it's the same thing on a walkover or a Stearman or anything like that. You got to be nimble to get in the front.
So when you are flying the thing solo, you fly it from the back seat,
Yep.
I'm assuming.
Yep. The way the center of gravity works is you got a 300-pound engine in the front and you got a 200-pound guy in the back, and it all evens out.
All right. Beautiful airplane. And what is this called again?
So it's a HATS. It's a experimental. The John Hatz designed it in the 80s. It's based on a Waco, but with modern engines. So I have a Lycoming 0320 in mine. So it's modern engine. Looks a little bit like a Great Lakes, I guess, nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But
beautiful.
Yeah, looks the part.
Yeah.
Yeah, great paint job
That's
on
cool.
it.
That's great. And we had another photo that has some type of a road vessel in it. Liz, if you can show us that one there. So are you going to go full-time RVing
camo
like
job.
me?
Yeah, I'm just trying to be like my grandpa. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry that we have that now.
No,
and
you have
we
inspired
invited
it.
you on the show.
So this
Now
is
you've
the
inspired an entire generation of
Battlefield-
people to take to the roads.
It's the battlefield version. You can park this on a battlefield. No one will see you.
It is a little camo
Yeah.
esque.
It's a
I think
If you-
Armando
I suppose
is
if you were in a
little bit
sand dune, it's kind of
experiencing
close.
some latency here, so you got to wait for a few seconds for him to actually hear what we're saying.
Oh, that's just him being slow.
It has nothing to do with the internet. That's just me.
Oh, that's just him. Okay. Yeah. All right. So,
Well,
so
I'll
you
tell
did
you
not
what. I
purchase
do.
this, you
I do
rented
think
it?
my signal is kind of going out.
Yeah.
Yeah. My signal's going out, so I'll just tell you about it, and then I can hop off. But yeah, we Labor Day weekend here in the U.S. I just wanted to be like you, Captain Jeff, and we rented this. It's a 31-foot Class C. We took off to the Outer Banks, me, Meg, and Maddie, and made the pilgrimage to Kitty Hawk, to first flight.
Oh, wow.
Got to see the monument. Yeah, it was pretty neat seeing the recreation they have of the hangars that those guys lived in for like 2 years. And and then it's pretty, I guess, impressive and underwhelming at the same time how short the first flight was.
When you stand there and you look at like the marker and
I
you're
think
like,
you can-
oh, really? That's as far as they? Oh, okay. Controlled powered flight though.
Yeah, I think you drive through a bunch of peanut fields, and we discovered that the first flight of the Wright brothers was like 119 feet, and like the world record for throwing a peanut is 126 feet. So,
You can throw a peanut farther than the Wright brothers flew the first flight. Wow, that's amazing.
but here we are, 100 years later.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget that that time there were people offering prizes of, like $1 million for flying 3 kilometers. That's, that's how the measure of success was. Tiny amounts to get up to what we're doing nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Well, Armando, thanks so much for joining us. And I know that it was very special that you were able to do this while you were taking care of some repair. How bad was it? How bad was the repair bill on this thing?
Oh my gosh, it was actually great. It was only $500, and I've been here all day. I'm at a Volvo dealership, and these guys have been awesome. They've given me an office for the day while they. Awesome.
And they probably did a nice wash and cleaned up the footwells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did. They actually gave it a whole detail before handing me the keys.
Excellent. You see,
Very
that's
nice.
almost worth it. $500 on its own.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well,
Yeah,
Armando,
something
you're
like that.
special to us in the APG community. You're a superstar. So thank you so much for lending your expertise today with covering that news item about the Osprey. And hope to see more of you on the show in the future.
Please.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks. And thanks for letting me actually talk about that, because that is a little bit close to home, that mishap. So,
Yeah. Well, thanks, man.
Good man.
I love you.
Lovely to see you.
Armando, good to see you.
all right.
We'll catch up in person sometime.
Take care, guys. Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers.
Absolutely. See ya.
Okay. Beautiful. So who would like to go next with the getting to know us?
I will, because I may have to step away briefly for a moment. I'm not
All
sure
right.
exactly when, but I don't have a lot to talk about because I actually was on the show last time, I think.
Cop switch.
Sorry. So actually got to do quite a bit of flying this past weekend. Got into jumper dumper mode and flew all day Saturday, most of the day Sunday, and then had it was Labor Day holiday here in the US on Monday. So had a day off of work to recover from flying all weekend and back to work this week. But actually our weather wasn't super great, and it looked like we were going to have afternoon thunderstorms both days, Saturday and Sunday. That was probably going to interfere with flying skydivers, jumping, but it was really interesting to watch because on Saturday a cold front came through. There was a lot of warm, humid, energy-filled air in the southeast, and as that came through, it really as the day went on, I was just watching the thunderstorms build along this front that was to the west of where I was, and it kind of just surrounded everywhere that we were, and I felt like we were just in this bowl of beautiful weather, and there was all this storm activity, 50 to 75 miles away in all directions, and it was really beautiful skies, but we had perfect clear weather all day, so that was kind of interesting.
Excellent.
Kind of the same thing on Sunday too. We did actually have one brief weather hold for a tiny, like the world's tiniest little buildup with it built out of nothing really quick, dropped rain for about 5 minutes, and then just disappeared entirely. So that was kind of interesting.
They've been doing that kind of thing here in the Atlanta area as well.
Yeah.
They just don't really come in from any direction. They just kind of
I watched
happen.
it. So our our round trip time on a in our caravan for flying skydivers is about 15 minutes, and I took off and I could see this thing just kind of starting to build. It was about halfway there by the time I got to altitude, drop jumpers. By the time I got down back to the ground and was landing, I could see rain starting to appear at the bottom of it. And I said, you know what? This is pretty close. It built really quickly. Let's just put a pause on things for a few moments. And then it never even made it. It was only like 2 miles away. It was moving in our direction. It built, released all its rain, and dissipated before it ever rained a drop on us, which was pretty fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
I seem to remember from my old trading that the life cycle of a thunderstorm was 30 minutes. That's, that's it.
Here they can last a lot longer.
Well, only if they regenerate.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you get
True.
one that
Okay.
kicks off, lives its life and dies, that's 30
That's
minutes,
about
but
fine.
often they continually trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then actually on Monday night, went with a group of friends from the drop zone to see a National Geographic film called Fly. It was about base jumping and wingsuit base jumping, and kind of followed these 3 different couples that have done it and met through it and kind of that community. It's actually really interesting, really well done. Lots of nice cinematography, lots of nice footage of some of these pretty incredible feats that people can do, but also very pretty high on the risk side of things. And they talk a lot about how the calculations and some of the history of things and how they developed all of this gear and how they made it as safe as possible and the risks that still exist with it. So it was interesting. It was good to watch. It was a really limited run. It was like 2 days here in the Charlotte area, I think in the US as well in the theater, but maybe it'll come out on demand or streaming at some point.
Cool. Well, if
I
it
would
does,
recommend.
you'll let us know.
Yep,
Sure.
we'll do.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it. I'm actually going to check a national park off my list this weekend.
Oh.
Going to go to, and correct me if I'm mispronouncing this, it's Cuyahoga Valley in Ohio. Did I get that right?
Sounds right.
Yeah, I think so.
Cuyahoga? Or Cuyahoga, maybe?
There's an H in there, so I'm not sure. Oh, I don't know. Someone
Yeah,
will
I don't know.
tell me if I got it wrong, or I'll figure it out
That
this
sounds
weekend
good.
and correct myself next week if I got it
Yeah,
wrong.
let us know next week.
We'll do. So a couple friends up in that area that I'm going to go see. I haven't seen them for a while. We used to do a yearly like cruise in January where we'd all meet in Miami and go to the Bahamas for like 3 days, and then we haven't done that since COVID. So it'll be nice to see them again.
We can't wait to hear about it. All right. In fact, I didn't even know there was one in Ohio. How about that?
Sure is. Main man Micah says Cuyahoga. Cuyahoga. Yep. So I think I was close.
Cuyahoga. Okay, you got it, I think.
Ding.
All right. Oh, yeah. Shoot. I'm sorry. I need to do that. All right. Nick Camacho, you have something you have in place of the American flag that you normally have flying behind you on the wall. You have another type of flag. What is that all about?
Yeah, today is the start of the American football season here in the United States. So I have my Chiefs flag hanging up back there. The Chiefs. So the NFL has a season opening game. They play most of their games on Sunday, but they have a season opener on Thursday. Usually that matches up the Super Bowl winner or at least one of the Super Bowl teams with somebody else. So the Chiefs have had the good fortune of playing in that game multiple times in recent history, and they're playing again tonight. So waiting for my son to get home from school, and we're going to sit down and watch that.
Nice. What time does that start, your time?
7:20 maybe? I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's usually like 7:20.
Okay, cool.
Well,
Maybe
good
I'll
luck. I
catch
hope,
that on the
I hope the
tube.
Chiefs win.
Yeah. All right. Anything else new for you?
No. We had we had a holiday weekend this weekend, and my brother ended up coming down with his family. So that was a pleasant surprise. So we spent all day Saturday and most of the day Sunday with them before they headed back up. My son went out. There was a youth day at the sailing club. So my son went out and sailed the tiny little boats around a little bit. And then we went out and spent some time at the airport. So it was a good weekend.
Nice. And your brother and family live up in Kansas City?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Very good. All right. Captain Nick, how about yourself? What have you
Not
been up-
much really in the way of news other than I am just very shortly going to enter the next decade of my life. So I have decided to wind up my photography business, not really because of my age. I'm still taking lots of pictures, but because my legs are no longer working as well as they used to, and getting down onto my knees in order to get sort of down to eye level, and just being agile enough to run round after these very fast gun dogs is proving to be a nightmare. So, yeah, I don't want to disappoint my clients. So I'm winding that business up, which is not to say I'm going to stop taking pictures. No, I love it. I'm going to do that for as long as I can. But certainly, I'm going to wind up the professional side of it. So you can change your intro a little bit there, Jeff.
Okay.
I'm now also a retired professional photographer. Yeah. Yes, exactly
Photographer.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I'm going to concentrate now on nude models. So,
Okay.
because they don't
as
move
much.
around so fast. It's easier to chase them, you see.
Okay. And
Anyway,
Julie is approved of this, of course.
well, I don't know if I need approval. I'm going to double check that. But
They're male nude models. Okay. Then she's just fine with it.
Well, we'll see. It's a little hard to tell nowadays, don't you think?
Could be. Yeah.
Anyway, let's talking about taking pictures. The cover art from last week was a bit fun. We had all sorts of things going on the show. It's to do with people taking mushrooms, mellow mushroom, magic mushrooms, turning fire handles, seasonal birds, lots of NOTAMs are garbage, and so we ended up with a sort of a runway with lots of strange toadstools and mushrooms growing on it, a pile of discarded NOTAMs, and lots of very weird exotic birds. And Steph came up with the actual title, which I thought was great. NOTAMs are just a bunch of mushrooms. That was very good. Now, nothing really terribly special other than there is nothing in that wasn't created by AI. So all the aircraft, all the birds, everything was AI. I mean, I added extra bits in, so it wasn't just one effort. Yeah, the flamingo legs, yes. I needed something there. Anyway, I did put the logo in there to look like a little flock of birds all on its own, because it's nice having wings on your logo. You can do all sorts of things with it. And I snuck in the show number. And if you look at some of the white flecks on the mushroom, there you go. You get 629. So well spotted. I'm assuming you, Liz, spotted that. Congratulations.
No,
Jeff. Oh, well done, sir.
I wasn't sure
you
that
had your
she was
magnifying
going to be
glass
back.
out.
So.
Yeah, good job. Good job. Nice one.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, nice job.
I had fun.
Very colorful.
Fun doing that.
Love that art.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Absolutely.
All right.
So that's me.
Okay. So me, quite easy. I'm just still hanging around home base and singing in funerals and masses on the weekend, and just enjoying the heck out of my backyards, which are usually right next to, what's that?
Yeah, where are you now?
Yeah, I'm in a new location from the last week. I think last week I did the show from the choir room, and this week, it turns out, I just found out today that I could have done that there again today. I could have sworn that Jane said that her husband is going to be, or no, somebody else, Deacon Dave was going to be using that room for a new youth choir, and then she goes, "Oh yeah, that's not for another 3 months." I think, oh man, I completely misunderstood the timing of that. Anyway, so I'm in my very warm. The air conditioning is off, and it's about 83 degrees now in here. It's not too bad. And I'm at Lake Lanier, one of the lakes to the northeast of Atlanta, and at a campground that I've never been before called Bald Ridge Creek Campground. And it's one of the Corps of Engineers campgrounds. So it's very nice. It's very park-like here. It's a lot of grass and looks like a park surrounded by a lot of water. So it's pretty cool. Very nice. I'm enjoying.
You're getting a good
the RV
signal
life.
for the satellite aerial.
Well, I when I was looking to find a spot in this campground, I used Google Maps, the satellite view, and tried to match it up with the campground map that they give you. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. And I was thinking, well, that looks like this site number 61 is all you stalkers out there, you can find me now. It looked like it had a good view based on what I could tell with Google Maps satellite view of the northern sky, and it's worked out pretty well. I think a little bit of obstruction here and there, but mostly clear shot of the sky at this site. And I've looked at some of the other sites in this campground that look like they might be good candidates for that as well. The bad thing is that this park closes at the end of October, so I'm not sure if I'll be back here or not before they close down. But there's a rumor. I just met a guy earlier today. I was sitting here working on the show prep, and I noticed another leisure travel van kind of slowly driving by, and I'm trying to wave at them, but they can't see me because the windows are tinted. And they pulled into the site next to mine, and then I'm thinking, oh, I think this guy is walking over here, and I'm still in my pajamas, and it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock. And so you can tell I'm enjoying this retirement life.
You're still in your pajamas at 11 o'clock.
Yeah. And he knocks on the door.
Join the club. I was still in my dressing gown at 11 o'clock.
There you go. So he comes and knocks on the door, and he said, hey, I noticed a fellow, leisure travel van Unity guy, and he's got a 2018 FX model. So we were talking about this, that, and the other. And he and his wife live in the area in Alpharetta, actually. And so we exchanged our information and everything else. So I think I made a new friend and a new RVing friend. And so that's kind of cool. I'm sure that
Excellent.
we'll be able
Well
to
done.
kind of do things together and that sort of thing. Was that the reason why I mentioned that? I thought there was probably another reason for me to... Oh, he said, this is it. I knew there must have been a reason for mentioning this. He said that he heard a rumor that this winter is going to be closed. This campground will be closed for the winter, but the rumor is that next year it's going to be open year round. So that'll be nice. More options for me. So
Very good.
anyway, so that's what I'm doing. Nothing special, and just living my life and enjoying it. And let's see, we have something here called the Coffee Fund that you can participate in if you want to help support us financially. And so here we go. I'm going to push this button, and we're going to sing
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
the Coffee Fund song.
I love
Coffee, I love tea, I love the APG community. Coffee and tea, and the Java and me. A cup. Oh yeah, the Coffee Fund. It's your opportunity, dear listener, to support us financially if you have the resources to do so. And a couple different ways to do that. Hey, Steph, how you doing? What you doing there, Liz? Okay, I'll go like
sorry,
this.
I
Always
was
go to the top,
coordinating things.
and then
I'll
we
leave.
go like this, and then there we go, like that. Okay. So a couple different ways to do that. One is the Coffee Fund Classic method, and since the last episode, we have a couple of folks who gave us nice donations to the original Coffee Fund Classic method, and Vernon Tryon and Justin Dwaron. I'm not sure if that's the way you pronounce your last name, Justin Dwaron. It sounds French, maybe. I don't know, French Canadian, possibly. Anyway, he sent us, both of them sent us some feedback. So we'll, I have some feedback that I can tell you about right here, directly with their donations. Vernon said, suffering from APG syndrome and glad you were there to feed my addiction. And then a note from Justin. He goes, I know it's not a lot. Oh, trust me, Justin, that was a higher than average contribution, so thank you very much for that. He says, I know it's not a lot, but it's just my way of saying thanks. And again, we're going to hear from both Vernon and Justin in our feedback, hopefully, if we have time for it. So that's one way to do it. And the other is to become a patron of the show via patreon.com. And since the last episode, no new patrons. So check out the coffee over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee You'll be glad you did, and we will too. And, yep. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, why don't we do that? Why don't we do some plain tailing, and then after that we can dive into some feedback. So, are you all ready, Liz? Okay. So, oh, okay. Well, that's not what we want. We want this one here, and then, okay. But you're going to be playing some slides, so you know how to do that, right? Okay. Okay. I mean, as far as the layout is concerned. So, okay, excellent. So, what we're going to do now is, before we do the feedback, we're going to do the old pilot's plain tale. And this week's episode is entitled The Safety of, what is it called? The Safety of Safety? Okay. I'm confused, but maybe we'll find out exactly what that means. So take it away, old pilot.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. The Safety of Safety. You are sitting in your airliner, and the handsome, pretty, or in a non-binary sense, cute, elegant, lovely, or in a non-exclusive way, charming, fine, interesting, or personable flight attendant is standing in front of you to demonstrate the safety features of your aircraft. Oh boy, girl, person, being, human, citizen, I might have opened a can of worms there. They're hermaphrodites, by the way. I wonder if you are one of those who gazes in apparent rapt attention as you simultaneously scowl at those who appear less engaged while actually wondering if you left the cooker on at home. Or you might be one of those who remains oblivious of the crew's attempts to brief you whilst trying to finish the latest episode of Get Me Out of This LGBTQ++ Spectra Sexual Love Island on your iPad, in which case you'll be labelled as one of the brain-dead moronic idiots who, in the event of an evacuation, won't have a clue and will try to grab all your belongings, including the airline's blankets, pillows and socks, whilst holding everyone else up. Hopefully, if you enjoy the airline pilot guy enough to be listening to this, you might have more than just a passing interest in what safety equipment there is on board the average big, well-equipped airliner. If so, listen on. Otherwise, I hope you're asleep by now and not penning an email to I'mOffended@airlinepilotguide.com. Am I allowed to say penning when you're probably fingering your phone's keyboard? Wow, life is full of traps nowadays. Right. When you step aboard, you do so through a door, which will, in the event of an evacuation, magically transform into an escape exit. This mystical change will be accomplished by a fairy. I'm imagining the mythical kind here, like Tinkerbell, dressed up as a flight attendant, who, on the orders of the Fairy Queen, stick with it please, will follow a procedure to change the door. On most modern aircraft, this just involves removing a pin and then moving a lever to the armed position. This action achieves a number of results, like arming the door opening assist system, a pressurized bottle that will speed up the movement of the door in an emergency, always a good idea, and cause the slide to deploy from a box attached to the inside of the door, which I might point out will now be the outside, or perhaps through a frangible layer of the fuselage just below the door sill. As an aside, if the cabin floor of your aircraft is less than 6 feet, or 1.8 meters, above the ground, a slide isn't required. On older aircraft, arming the door might involve grubbing around for a solid metal rod attached to the slide called the girt bar and physically hooking it onto the door so that when the door swings open, it will activate the slide. Having armed the door, the cabin crew will then signal up and down the cabin to confirm their actions, either on the interphone or with a hand signal. Watch for a thumbs up, not a middle finger, or similar. On the flight deck of proper aircraft, there will usually be a system on the central electronics display that will show the status of each door, closed and or armed, which the pilots will check. From then and until the doors are disarmed when the aircraft approaches its parking place at the destination, the door is an escape exit, but that isn't its only talent. When, in the event of an emergency, it is opened, usually by the cabin crew swinging the big lever, but you might have one of your own to play with, the door will bang open and the slide rapidly inflate, within a time limit of 6 seconds. The overwing exit that passengers get to play with probably won't be as clever by far. Whilst this is happening, your well-trained cabin crew will be blocking the exit with their bodies, whilst ensuring the slide is fit for use and the area around are safe for an evacuation. Please don't push them out in your haste to experience aviation's equivalent of a bouncy castle, or a slippery dip if you're from down under. The slide is like a kid's paddling pool in your yard. It's surprisingly tough, but if you attack it with high-heeled shoes or, heaven forbid, a carry-on, it might be tears and tears all round. While I'm on the subject, hand luggage stays behind where you put it. Nothing is more important than someone's life, and all it will do is slow down the evacuation, potentially blocking those already narrow aisles, trip up other passengers, or wreck the slide. Once you have slid down the slide, please immediately turn around and use your phone to capture the antics of the numpties trying to wrestle their luggage down it. No, don't. Just run to safety. An evacuation wasn't always as easy as that, since in the early days of air travel, the escape system involved sliding down a rope or down a chute which had to be held taut at the bottom by two helpful gentlemen who had previously jumped for it. The inventor of an inflatable evacuation slide was a chap called James Boyle, who founded the company Air Cruisers, which moved on to bigger things after making inflatable life vests, first patented by an American, Peter Marcus, and commonly known as the Mae West. Mae was an actress well known for the size of her bosom. I guess that nowadays we might call them Dolly Partons. Every passenger on board will have their own life vest, but the trick is remembering where it's hidden. Should you have survived a water landing, a ditching to the rest of us, your slide will now have magically become a raft. In the early days of airliners crossing vast expanses of salty water, big multi-person life rafts were stowed in various locations that could be dragged out of the aircraft and launched through one of the doors. Not an easy task, as those things are heavy. It was an Australian, Jack Grant, a Qantas Ops Safety Superintendent, who in 1965 came up with the idea of making the slides dual purpose, and he suggested it to a number of aircraft manufacturers. Sea trials were held in a number of testing locations, such as Barbados, Honolulu, and Sydney, Australia, which ensured a remarkably good attendance from airline operators, government agencies, and survival equipment experts from all around the world. After a good deal of discussion and extended talks in the finest hotels and restaurants, agreement was reached, and from that time onwards, the slide raft was fitted to all large aircraft, Airbus, Boeing, Douglas, and Lockheed, and even the magnificent Concorde and the 747. Jack's slide raft design trophy, a safety award from the Guild of Air Pilots and Navigators for an outstanding contribution to air safety. Since a few seconds ago, this amazing inflatable slide raft thingy had been wrapped up in an amazingly small space, It didn't have a lot of things needed, like radio beacons, paddles, rations, water, first aid packs, puncture repair kits, and a small myriad of other essentials like rockets, flares, water dye, and a heliograph. All that will be collected by the cabin crew, who until a few minutes ago were your waiters on an expensive luxury journey halfway around the world, and are now what separates you from a nasty death floating in the vast expanse of a mighty ocean. Every year the crew had to prove to their licensing authorities' satisfaction that they had memorized the position of every single item of survival equipment on the aircraft. They will locate it and bring it with them to the raft you occupy. They are now wearing bright-coloured tabards emblazoned with the word crew to remind you that they are your saviours and definitely in charge. Interestingly, the heliograph is one of the simplest forms of survival equipment you can find, and yet it is one of the most effective. From the ancient Helios, the sun, and graphene to write, it might well date back to the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC, when the Persians invaded ancient Greece, and a polished shield was possibly used to flash sunlight as a signal. Or the Romans might have employed it to signal Emperor Tiberius from the mainland, who was, I expect, holidaying on Capri. Reliable date we have is 1869, when Henry Mance of the British government Persian Gulf Telegraph Department developed one from surveying equipment to signal 35 miles from Karachi in India. The principle is simple. A mirror is used to deflect the sun's rays to a distant observer where, with a bright sun and clear atmosphere, the glint can be seen many miles away. Aiming the heliograph requires you to find the reflection of the sun and lay it onto the sight attached to the mirror by a bit of cord. If it's fallen off, you can use a finger. Then, looking through the little hole in the mirror, you line up the centre of the reflection on the sight and aim both at the rescue vessel. The natural movement of your hands will be sufficient to make the signal twinkle. The heliograph's great advantage is that it needs no batteries, just the sun, but that does limit it to bright daylight periods. More fun are the signal rockets, and once more the pretty cabin crew who cleaned up your spilt drink and got rid of your sick bags will know exactly what angle to hold the launcher to control the height of its ascent so that it will remain below the cloud and visible to rescuers on an overcast day. They also know which end of a handheld flare to use by day and night, and how to tell the difference in the dark. The rough end is a bright flare, so the phrase, "It's been a rough night," or "knurled for night and smooth for smoke," will remind them which end to activate. Once all your safety equipment is on board the raft and safely stowed, they will also know how to detach it from a sinking aircraft and how to link it to other rafts so that you can stay together. Other kinds of information that they have at their fingertips will be the location of the aircraft's fire axis and how much protection from electricity the handle provides, 20,000 volts. The spike on the back is used to pry open panels to locate the source of a fire. When found, a slightly controversial type of fire extinguisher is used to put it out. For over 45 years, halo-generated hydrocarbons, known as halons, have been practically the only fire-extinguishing agent used in civil transport aircraft. However, halon is an ozone-depleting and global warming chemical, and its production has been banned by international agreement since 1994. Halon has been used in civil aviation because it's extremely effective on a per unit weight basis over a wide range of aircraft environmental conditions. It's a clean agent, leaving no residue. It's electrically non-conducting, has low metal corrosion properties, is very stable, and has relatively low toxicity. It forms the basis of the engine fire bottles, cargo bay fire suppression, the handheld cabin extinguishers, and the like. A bottle of it is even in the toilet waste bins. Decades of searching has yet to reveal a comparable alternative, so Halon is recycled. But eventually the supply will be exhausted, and the skies won't be quite as safe as before. For more information, please refer to your safety card, which, by the way, started life in the 1930s as Notes for the Comfort and Convenience of Passengers, which included such wonderful advice as, do not be concerned if the aircraft banks. This is entirely normal, and do not try to balance the aircraft by leaning the opposite way. A few hints were added on how to wear your life vest and where to acquire your foreign money. Imperial Airways finished with the wonderfully comforting information that the engines were of British design and manufacture, and the aircraft flown by British pilots. Long live the Empire!
Was that last meant to scare everybody?
I should think so. The Imperial March. Yes. Bit of fun.
Lots of
Just a bit
innuendo
of
in
fun.
there that I believe you purposely added.
Who, me?
Unless it's just my mind. I don't know.
Yeah, just your mind. I'm sorry.
It's just my dirty mind. Okay.
I try to make them a little amusing, but
Yeah.
that one, I really started off just thinking about Halon and how damaging it is, and yet we're still using it. But eventually, of course, we'll run out, and no one has yet come up with a suitable replacement for aircraft to use. So, when they do eventually run out, it's going to be different, that's for sure.
Just gonna have to get used to fires everywhere, I guess.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm just wondering what they'll do. But, I mean, obviously there are other agents, but they're not as effective. And they have additional problems that Halon doesn't. But there you go.
Hey, Liz, could you go back to the, I think it was the second to last slide of the, no, let's see. No, it's the, much closer to the very end. They were in the life rafts and air. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Okay. I love this Air India brochure. How they're really having a great time in that life raft out there in the middle of the ocean. It looks like a hot tub, but yeah. Exactly.
I actually prefer the one in the top left corner.
Well, I was hoping not to draw attention to that, actually.
Which I thought was a remarkably natural pose for someone who was going to fly on an aeroplane. So I wouldn't recommend going on an airplane dressed like that.
That's what the way flight attendant uniforms used to look back then. It was pretty risque. What? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
What airline is this? Aviaction?
Yes.
Action.
I don't think they, despite their advertising and their safety cars, I don't think they're in business anymore.
Oh, that's the kind of airline that I wished I had flown for. But,
I thought you did. Obviously not. No.
Nope.
No. I think the American Airlines one was very boring there.
Yeah, well, us Americans are boring. Okay.
A bunch of feedback.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start off with let's just see how far we go before we just run out of steam. Huh? Okay. Okay, will do. Here we go. Now it's time. That was a great plain tale, Nick, and now it's time for us to shift to feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
All right, this is from Wizard Phil. We were talking about no smoking signs, I believe, on the last show. Yeah, I'm a retired A&P mechanic with 56 years working line maintenance and started listening to aviation podcasts. I discovered APG, and of all the podcasts, I totally enjoy yours. The camaraderie and humor make each session very entertaining, plus well put together with its segments. Well, thank you, Wizard Phil. As you mentioned, the no smoking sign has been a bone of contention for 30 plus years. One of my previous employers decided to change the sign on a newly acquired fleet type, I believe the F100, to display PED with the X through it. Made sense, since no smoking was no longer an issue. The PED sign meant portable electronic devices. And was turned on and off at flight level 100, where phones and computers should be turned off or allowed on. This did not carry out with the rest of our fleet, and to this day, I don't believe anyone else followed other than the Bombardier jets, the A220. Today, I believe the crew alerts the cabin when at flight level 100 or 10,000 feet, so the flight attendants can make their pre-landing announcement, including all PEDs should be off or on. The Airbus 320 family uses an auto mode for the no smoking signs on-off once the gear is lowered, and the CIDS is set for a non-smoking cabin. I believe this is the cabin crew's alert for pre-landing instructions and PED use on this fleet type. The A220 setup, as seen below, does have the auto selection and operates via flat position and aircraft altitude of flight level 100. The PSUs, the passenger service units, incorporate a no PED, NS, and FSB light with the no smoking light on at all times. Only the no PED and FSB, I guess fasten seatbelts sign, are able to be controlled by the crew manually or in auto, or the flight attendants via the CMS panel, the crew management system panel. The A220 satisfies all. I think Wizard Phil likes the A220. The E190 was manual only. Last 19 years, I only worked Embraer and the Airbus 320 family. And he gave us a couple of the images there of the passenger service units and that. Yeah, okay, thank you, Liz, for showing that to everybody watching the video. All right, well, thank you, Wizard Phil, for that extra information. All right.
I was desperately trying to think up an alternative understanding for FSB, because I thought NS, no smoking, FS was fast smoking before something. I couldn't come up with anything, so I don't know why I said that.
First smoking break.
Hey, good. I like that. First smoking break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way to go.
Yay.
Thanks.
We're such a creative crew, aren't we? This is the reason why people come and watch and listen to our show, right? Maybe?
Quite right, too.
All right. Let's continue on with some audio feedback. And, oh, yeah, this is from Rodrigo, who used what's it called,
Speak
Liz?
pipe.
Speak pipe. There, thank you.
Stink pipe.
I wanted to say stream, but I knew it wasn't stream. Speak pipe, or steam pipe, which is the old version, but this is the more modern version called speak pipe. And sent several. There's a limitation on how long you can record on speak pipe, and so Rodrigo did several consecutive recordings on speak pipe. And actually, his first, I don't know how many attempts, he decided, nah, I didn't like the way they sounded, so I'm going to try this again. So we're going to play installment numbers 6 through 12, and I put them all together so we can hear Rodrigo tell us all about. This is in regard to that Swiss 777 that tried to do a 180-degree turn and got about 90 degrees and then stopped. Oh, by the way, I was thinking about this, Captain Nick. We were trying to decide how it is that the nose wheel was straight and not cocked to almost 90 degrees to facilitate this very tight turn, and the fact that there wasn't any evidence of the nose wheel kind of making its way into that area off the runway in the grassy area.
I was curious.
And I'm thinking, what if that we were looking at it was a right-hand turn, and the area that's all torn up is on the other side of the nose wheel? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe what happened there, and that's why we didn't see it in the foreground of the photo. I don't know. Anyway, Rodrigo doesn't consider that at all in his feedback. He just sent more of a technical explanation for doing these turns in the 777. So without further ado, where is it? Oh, I think I have to, darn it. Okay, hang on. Add some time, Liz. I put his... Oh, I spent a lot of time putting all this together. I better be able to find it. I had it all set to go and play on my laptop and not on the Mac Mini, which I'm using right now. So let me find it. Drag it over to this. Okay, didn't take as long as I thought it would. It's transferring. The file's transferring. It's showing a little thing moving around in a circle. Luckily, it's not a beach ball
of death.
If it was a beach ball, it would be a bad thing. But this is like here we go. Okay. I think we're ready to go now. So take it away, Rodrigo.
Hi, guys. Correlated with the equipment of the 777 300 extended range, different from the 200 long range and the 200 freighter, which are the ones that I fly. 300, we do carry a ground maneuvering camera system. That ground maneuvering camera system assists us to identify what is the position of the main bogie, the undercarriage, and the nose wheel. We do not have an overlay image with markings on top of the video that we're seeing, but what they did, Boeing gave us some markings on top of the wings to assist us during limited visibility scenarios. So now talking about turning radius, if we compare the 200 freighter or the 200 with the 300 extended range, of course, the aircraft are different. This distance between the main undercarriage and the nose wheel and the 200 or the 200 freighter is about 84 feet 11 inches, otherwise 2589 meters. While in the 300 extended range is 102 feet and 5 inches and 31.22 meters, so 31.22 meters. So it's a quite significant distance, and that accounts for the minimum turn, and that is minimum payment requirement for a 180-degree turn for a 200 of 157.4 feet or 48.0 meters. So an average runway could be fine, but you're very quickly running into that scenario of not being the best of situations. While the 300 extended range is slightly wider at 56.5 meters or a 185.5 feet. So, well, looking at the 180 turns you mentioned in the FTM, again, we have always to have some references. If the ground maneuvering camera system is not working, we do have some indications that helps us essentially with windows number 1 in the left and number 1 in the right. They mentioned the lower corners of the outer corners of the windows, depending on each pilot, would indicate where the outer carriage is, and the inner carriage could be measured by the window next to the divider between both windows and the fronts. And of course, the reference for the nose wheel will be in between the pilot, the primary flight display, and the nav display. This is a very, very basic visual indication. But that's why Boeing gave us this wonderful tool of the ground maneuvering camera system. Boeing talks about reducing our recommendations of several techniques to minimize the displacement of the undercarriage during the maneuver. Of course, they always recommend that you have to go to the extreme of the one side of the runway and minimize your turning radius by maintaining a speed between 5 and 10 knots. You can assist yourself with the outer engine, extending yourself. And as they mentioned, as the airplane passes through 90 degrees turn, steer the airplane to the center line of the runway. Of course, you cleared already the hurdle of having the nose wheel very close to the extreme side. They always mention that to keep in mind the references that you have based on the windows that I mentioned before. So after you start doing the turn, essentially when you're a beam of the point that you want to do the turn, you're going to go and do a maximum deflection of your tiller. And while maintaining 5 to 10 knots, you should be able, as long as you have the sufficient width that has been described on the FCOM of the area where you want to do the maneuver available, you should have no inconveniences. Next is what I was mentioning yesterday, a little bit fast and unprecise, which is the 180 degrees pivot turn. So, well, they mentioned that this maneuver of pivot turn of 180 degrees is a non-normal or emergency situation. Is presented to the crew, then you are provided this option to do a 180 degrees turn on a 45 meters or 147.6 feet surface. They always encourage that the preferred method later on is going to be if you have a tow was to get assistance by that. And they do have the following indication, that is that due to the potential high structural loads on the pavement that is not solid, this method must not be used as in routine basis. Pavement surfaces as sounds and free of loose debris, and the airplane exceeds the maximum landing weight. So that would be limited for mainly an operation that is not a long haul operation. Later on, there's a few things that they mention in some bullet points, which is there's large tire deflections and rubber trails are normal. Inspection of the main gear tires, nose gear tires, and pavement surface is recommended after completion of the pivot turn. The resulting engine thrust on the outside engine may damage the runway shoulder surface, especially if it's unpaved. The nose wheel may produce a scrubbing noise and vibration on the flight deck. Pivot turns on pavements are not sound may cause pavement damage. In addition, if the pavement fails in such a way as to increase the forces between the pavement and surface and the tires, gear and tires design loads may exceed the potential for tire or gear damage. Loose debris may result in tire cuts, which could lead to premature tire failure. And as such, at the end of the day, they've always mentioned that this would require later on an inspection by maintenance. So yes, it is an option, but as you can see, has a lot of additional considerations. And as Nick was mentioning, I think it's a better option to get towed and do the maneuver if that's the only option for you to depart from that airfield. At the end, guys, thank you so much. Sorry for the amounts of messages and a little bit incoherent messages at the beginning. Keep the good work going on. Happy retirement for you, Jeff. Liz, thank you always for producing and assisting us and having this wonderful show in the air. Salutations to Captain Nick and Steph and the rest of the crew. Hope to meet you when there's a chance, maybe in a UK layover or in a US layover. I'm mainly staying in New York whenever I do a US flights, but if I'm in the vicinity of Atlanta or by any chance you're driving through that area, with your RV, Jeff. Let's see if we can meet. Take care. Greetings to all. Bye-bye. Rodrigo, out.
Rodrigo, thank you so much. Now, are you auditioning for Miami Rick's part?
You've got it. No,
You got
absolutely.
it, man. You nailed it.
Good job. Yeah.
You'll notice I didn't play the crickets sound.
Crickets. No, I was expecting a few crickets at least. Yeah. It was a good job, though. Well covered.
Yeah.
And the question I had really was answered very promptly, which was, do you have a camera system? And the answer is yes, you do. So, one of the excuses we were offering perhaps isn't there for this poor chap running his nose wheel off. But there you go.
Sorry, my
Jeff's all gone
is...
quiet.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Jeff,
he's
come
gone
back.
a bit fuzzy.
Come back to us. Come back.
Yeah, don't go to the light, Jeff. Don't go to the light. Oh.
He's swimming back.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Had a little, must have been one of the low Earth orbiting satellites must have gone out of view or something there. So
it just crashed into the lake. Yeah.
It may have. I do the best I can. Okay. Maybe next week.
You did a good job.
I'll be back in the choir room next week and have that, have my other hotspot with me. Maybe that'll work out a little bit better. Anywho, so yeah, thanks again, Rodrigo, for all that hard work there and explaining to us the deal with the 777 and turn radius and all that kind of stuff. It's good stuff. All right. Shall we move on with some more feedback? All right.
Sure.
Okay. Well, we're getting at we're approximately 2.5 hours in right now, and we're going to go ahead and probably knock out at least one or maybe a couple of more of the pieces of feedback here. So let's continue this with feedback from Justin Doiron. He was one of our contributors to the Coffee Fund that we mentioned earlier in the show, the Coffee Fund segment. And he says, hello, Captain Jeff. Let me explain. Okay. Oh, that's right. I got to read the title. That doesn't make any sense if I don't. Okay. So the title of his feedback is, your podcast is so good that I almost can't listen to it. Okay. He says, let me explain. I'm a 39-year-old father of 3 from Prince Edward Island, Canada. I just recently changed positions at work that requires me to commute an hour each way from home, thus allowing me plenty of time to listen to APG. Why APG? Well, back in 2010 to 2012, I attended Moncton Flight College in New Brunswick, Canada, where I obtained my PPL and night rating and had all the hours required to do my commercial testing. I was truly ready to start my dream career. Please allow me to back up even farther. When I was 2 years old, yes, I can accurately remember that period in my life. My father and I used to drive to the airport every weekend and just watch planes. At the time, our small regional airport handled mostly Dash 8s, DC 9s, and BAE 146s. We kept a log of all the tail numbers we'd seen over the years and had books and books full of entries. The majority of Air Nova, Air Canada, and Air Atlantic, Canadian Airlines, flights to and from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Montreal, Quebec. Ever since, every time I'm in an airport, which is rare, I find myself just in awe of the whole environment. While some people complain about delays, I almost love them as it affords me more time in one of my favorite places, just looking out the window and watching planes. Why am I telling you this? Because it was that simple activity that launched me into a 100% pure love of everything aviation. It became a passion from those incredibly early childhood years and burns inside of me to this day. I was on track to fulfill my lifelong dream of becoming an airline pilot. And then, as people do, I met myself a lady and had a son. Due to where we lived geographically, pursuing that dream really wasn't an easy possibility anymore if I wanted to have any meaningful presence in my son's life. That's just how the cookie crumbles, right? Fast forward to today, and now I have 3 boys, one 15, one 3, and one 6 months. I've basically accepted the fact that living the life of an airline pilot will somehow have to wait until the next life. I'm okay with that, and I wouldn't trade fatherhood for anything in the world. But sometimes I do find myself longing for what could have been, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't get heartbroken at times. Since I started my new position, I immediately wanted to find an aviation-related podcast to occupy my brain on those commutes, and I came across APG. As I started listening to the latest episode at that time, As I started listening to the latest episode at the time, 627, I immediately recognized your voice, and I realized that I listened to you back in the early days of APG. So really, what I wanted to say after all that is simply thank you. Listening to you and crew brings me back to the subject and the days when my dream was so easily within reach. At the risk of sounding like a pity case, I often find myself with a lump in my throat when I hear you and your guests tell stories of your days in the sky, wondering what it may have been like. I know you guys do it for the enjoyment, but I just want you to know that there are people like me listening who get a lot more out of your show than simple entertainment value. Mind you, I'm also very entertained listening as well. I feel like one of the crew when I'm listening, as you have such a fantastic way of making your listeners feel engaged and included. Shout out to Captain Nick for his quick wit as well, to Liz for taking it all in stride, and to Dr. Steph, Rick, and Nick Jr. for adding even more layers to the show. Oh, and also that guy, Fred, in the chat, who always seems to have something to say. I don't think he's with us today, is he? Super Fred
Haven't seen him.
Driver?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Thanks so much again, and I hope to one day be able to catch the show live. And again, this is from Justin Doiron in Summerside, Prince Edward Island, Canada. And I am definitely, Liz is saying I should take the road vessel there, and I'm definitely planning the Maritimes as a destination, maybe even, I don't know, maybe this year or later or early next year, something like that. I don't know. I'll have to get a briefing from somebody on best time of year to go up there, probably in the summer, I would imagine. But I definitely want to go up there to the Maritimes, and when I do, Justin, expect me to knock on the door, and I'd love to meet your lovely wife and your 3 boys. And the thing that I'm going to say, and I'm sure that everybody's going to say something about your feedback, thanks so much for taking the time to send in that positive feedback. And sometimes we selfishly, I know that I really enjoy doing the show because I get to meet up with my best friends every week, and my best friends in the chat room, and all of the people who have been listening to the show for so many years. I mean, I really feel like this is a family for me, and I'm thrilled to do it. But to hear feedback from somebody like you, and to know that we're having an impact on people out there, and inspirational and entertaining and all that kind of thing is very rewarding to hear. And I have to tell you also that you have your priorities straight. By being a good father and good husband is so important. So good on you, and I can't wait to meet your family. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah, it was great feedback. I really love hearing, stories about our listeners sometimes, and it reminds, I think, all of us that, if even though have been or currently are kind of immersed in flying on a regular basis, there's a lot of folks out there who are not able to for one reason or another. It's nice to know that us getting together and enjoying talking about aviation scratches that itch a little bit for other folks as well.
Yeah, very well put together piece of feedback. Lovely to hear your life story. And it's sad perhaps that you didn't fulfill your dreams, but you've done the next best thing. And I think one of the things all of us who flew for a living always enjoyed more than almost anything was coming back home to our families. So you've managed to achieve that all the time. Well done.
Yeah. All right. The last thing I'll say before we move on is that we purposely on this show try to keep everything on the positive side and inspirational side and fun side and make you laugh, you know, entertain you and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that there isn't the other side of doing this kind of job in aviation. It's not all, what do they say, rainbows and unicorns, whatever the saying is. It's yeah, at times, you know, we've had people that wanted to kind of have us focus on, well, that's, you know, reality. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to talk about reality. I want to talk about the good stuff. And I want to inspire people here. And that's, I think, all of us here that you're seeing here on the video and you're hearing in your earbuds or whatever right now, we're all on the same page with that. There are so many great things about aviation, and we just we love it so much that we can't wait to share it with everybody that's listening to us. So, okay, Neil Landwarm, sorry, Neil, I keep calling you Landwarm. It's more than just a show for us too. Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I mean, really do believe that everybody here is part of a big family, and we're here to support each other. And it just, you know, it doesn't do any good to talk about all the negative aspects. I mean, everything in life has a negative side, right? So we prefer to talk about the positive side. Okay. So Liz, part of our immediate family, who is back with us. Thank you, Liz. Oh, yeah, we got to knock this thing out. Oh, okay. Okay, so we're gonna do number 7 because Nick, I'm sorry, is that right? No, yeah, it's number 7. I don't know why. I'm trying to select it in my Evernote and it's just not selecting. Okay, here we go. This is from Sam. I know that Sam, well, he was with us earlier in the live audience. I don't know if Sam, if you're still there or not. He's in the yeah, he was concerned about my clock being a little bit off, and then it turns out that he was just pulling my leg. Anyway, Sam, I think he's in Los Angeles, says, "Good day, crew. I'm boarding an A330 and I'm a bit confused regarding the seat lettering. I noticed I'm not the only one. The seating is a 2-4-2 configuration. I'm seated on the right side aisle, which is H, and the window seat is J. The two seats to my left in the center are E and G. I cannot see the other side of the plane to know what the letters are. Maybe Captain Nick can shed some light on this. Normally, from left to right would be A through H. I may be able to catch the last 30 minutes of the show today before we land, or after we land. This is my first time on the A330. It's very comfortable and roomy. Have a good show." All right, so we did a lot of research on this, especially Captain Nick. And so he wants to address this. And Sam, I understand. I am very, very confused about this whole seat numbering, lettering system that airlines use. And apparently it doesn't seem to have any kind of commonality between various airlines. So, Nick, can you help us out?
I certainly can. But before I start, I'm going to have to open another beer.
Oh, of course. Well, that'll definitely help.
Yeah, it does.
And then let's talk numbers and letters.
There's not a lot of logic here. However, Sam said he was sitting in a 2-4-2. Now that means 2 seats at the side, on the fuselage sides, and 4 seats in the middle, with H and J on the right-hand side, which isn't the normal sort of lettering, because the furthest on the right is normally the window seat is K for kilo. So you get alpha on the very left-hand side and kilo on the very right-hand side. That's because the biggest spread you normally get is a 3-4-3. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So that 343, which is the back end of both of those, that's an A380. So normally goes A, B, C, then you get an aisle, and then it goes D, E, F, G. That's the 4 in the middle, and then H, J, K. So most airlines keep the window seats as A, Alpha, and K, Kilo, not as the one you were sitting in, which had J, Juliet. Nobody uses I, because, of course, an I can be confused with the number 1. And since the seat are numbered from the front to back, if you added an I in there, someone would get confused and start claiming that they were entitled to sit in first class when they're probably supposed to be way down the back. Gotcha. So they always, everybody misses out I. Now, when they have less seats, they miss out letters. So what tends to happen is, you can see here the configuration is a 242, which is a bit like the one you were in. Alpha Bravo is on the left side. Now, some airlines will use Alpha Charlie on the left side. They'll miss out the B. So there's no sure way of telling whether you'll have the aisle seat or not. But notice that it'll be C or B if you're on the left-hand side and you want an aisle seat. So when they get less seats than a 343, they just miss out letters, but they do vary. Now, the ones they've missed out on, the one you can see there is Charlie and Hotel, C and H. But this airline also, well done, Liz, that's really good. This airline also has a 242, and if you look at, which is the kind of middle area of the left-hand part of the fuselage, if you look at it, it misses out Bravo and Juliet, not as that previous airline did, which was missing out Charlie and Hotel. So, no, we don't need that one there, so back to that one, thank you very much. So, they miss out BJ. And anyone who misses out a BJ is going to have a very bad flight. So that's what she said.
Nick wanted to do this.
Exactly. He's been planning for a week now.
Oddly, exactly. Oddly, if you look in the front of these aircraft, they've got pods. Where you get a nice big area, a couple of a lounge seat and a bed and all that stuff. Now notice that they go Alpha, Echo, Foxtrot, Kilo are the 4 pods on the front row, but a little bit further back it changes to Charlie, Delta, Golf, Hotel. So the window seat goes from an Alpha to a Charlie, and on the other side of the fuselage from a Kilo to a Hotel. So you go, well, what's the logic behind that? I have absolutely no idea. That one has completely defeated me. I
actually have an idea. I wonder if it's the way. So it's the way the seats are pointed. I wonder if it's mostly for like maintenance type purposes, so that you have a specific direction the seat faces and have it easily labeled.
That is true. The way when they've twisted the seat around to sort of herringbone it in, that's when they change the letters around. But it does just seem a bit odd, because your window
I think they do it just to
confuse
everybody.
Well, they've managed to achieve that without any problems at all. So nobody in the airline industry currently has a 353, which would need an extra letter, because at the moment we only go up to K for Kilo. So you'd need to find an extra letter of the alphabet. I don't know what you'd do, whether you would suddenly make all your windows K.
So you were not able to find any 330s?
Well, I saw a mock-up. Someone put a mock-up of one, a 353, on a Boeing 747-8. They'd say, well, this is one of the very few aircraft you could fit 3 seats, then 5 seats in the middle. And who would want that middle seat being right in the middle and have to get over 2 other sets of knees to get to the aisle.
A
so you
family
go
of
to the
5 with
loo.
very small children to put in the middle.
Yeah. So,
But actually, I was
many
referring
of
to there. I did find on Seat Guru there is a 242-330 configuration, and if this is accurate, Delta actually does Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta Foxtrot Golf Hotel Juliet.
Hotel Juliet.
That's
Well,
the smartest
obviously someone does
of
because
all.
Sam sat on one.
But I wonder if it was not EG but FG that he saw, because I can't find any that are EG.
Oh well, I mean, most airlines keep the same. The very right-hand window seat is Kilo K. Anyway, so obviously
Sam, he's
there's
with
no
us in the
international
live
agreement.
audience. So I'm
yes.
sorry to interrupt you, Captain Nick.
That's all right.
He is with us in the live audience. And what airline was that? Did he didn't mention it in his feedback? Did he?
No, he didn't.
So
No,
let us know, Sam. What
It's
it's
probably
okay if it wasn't Delta.
some Iceland or Hawaiian or Icelandic, a Russian outfit. Sure, it wasn't in Cyrillic. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's basically it. Best thing to do is look at the map and work it out on your app, your phone app that normally has a layout of the seats, and then you won't make a mistake and book the wrong seat. Anyway,
So
good luck with finding the correct seat next time, Sam. And the best thing I find is when you get on the airplane and there's some very pretty young cabin crew lady there, just show her your boarding pass and ask her which aisle to go down, and then you'll find yourself at the correct side of
ask
the
Michelle.
aircraft.
What if it's a guy?
Oh, that's fine. You can ask him too.
All right. You were making a very
Well, I was just
perfect
talking for
distinction there,
myself.
so I just wanted to make sure.
I mean, I'd like to.
also be
Fair.
able to.
Some of us would
Yeah.
like to talk to the guy, the young.
Yeah, very true.
I have to admit, there are times when I am non-revving or deadheading, and I'm trying to find my seat, and I'm looking at the little seat. What do you call those little placards over the and the
Yeah,
overhead?
we call them
bins?
The
little
labels.
placards.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I'm looking at them, going, I don't know why. Why is this so difficult to figure out? I'm an airline pilot, 35 years, and I still can't figure this out.
Yeah, that's very
Well,
true.
no, I
You
mean, when I'm
had
flying the airplane, yes, Liz, but if I'm traveling in the back,
1A is the one you had.
yeah, no, I never
Or
get
0A.
1A. That's Nev seat. I think every placard that is 1A, they've changed it out and just put Nev, N-E-V.
Yeah, none of the rest of us are allowed to occupy that seat. It doesn't even matter if
I
Nev
also
is not currently
noticed
flying.
that they very rarely line up with the actual seat. So you're never sure whether it's the one in front or the one
yeah.
behind.
I know.
And
You're-
the bigger the bigger the seat, the harder it is to work out which one's yours. So
And
I
I'm
do
always-
understand your problems.
I'm always so scared to death when I'm in my pilot uniform and I'm thinking, I really hope that I have I'm sitting in the right seat, because it's going to be very embarrassing. Yes,
yeah,
I'm
do
still
you
wearing my
drive
pilot uniform.
with your hat on? Do you
No,
wear your
I'm
hat
talking
when
about
you
when
go
I was
out?
when I was still flying, not now.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, you got
Fair
it.
enough.
My favorite one is, I think it's mostly A320s, because that's the biggest airplane I fly on. But I assume with United, they have different interior configurations where seats 16 through 21, or maybe 16 through 20, are like a plug that may or may not be there, because you'll be walking. It'll be aisle 15, and then we'll go to aisle 21. And so, like every other flight, you'll be walking. And somebody who's sort of paying attention, and they're in like seat 23 or something, right? And so they look up and it's seat 14, and they walk 8 or 9 seats, and then they're like, what happened? And then everybody's got to back up and then come back to
So I just looked on the
22.
the map here specifically for the United A320. Since you mentioned it, it goes 1, 2, 3 in first, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 20, 21,
good Lord.
22. I have no idea why. That makes no sense. That's even worse than the lettering. So
Yeah, that
I
is.
think
That's a lot
that's
worse.
magic mushrooms going on right there. I think.
I would also
I
like
love
to
it.
say I learned quite a lot from Captain Nick through that talk. I think the most important thing is that since he is our linguistic expert, I did not realize that herringbone was a verb. So I'll add that one to my
It's
repertoire.
verbification.
You could
That's what
herringbone
that
a
is.
seat together.
Herringbone.
Herringbone. That's great.
If it wasn't
title,
before, it is
herringbone.
Yes,
now.
definitely. Ding.
Okay, we're going to end this with this from Sam, another Sam Dawson. And he said, his feedback is entitled Captain Jeff Spotting. I think I recently spotted Captain Jeff's RV. I wish I'd known he was in the neighborhood ahead of time. So that's the RV
that was the
that he-
DIY version.
That
of
is
your-
that is pretty sophisticated. It even has wheels in the back, like just in case you go over like a steep incline.
Just
or
in case
decline.
that back tire goes completely flat.
Or
as
in
it looks
case
like
you've
it-
miscalculated your weight and balance and
I
you
was
put
gonna
too much
say.
in the back compartment there. You're like, whoops.
You think
little,
that there might be a lot of weight to this whole
aft heavy.
rig, maybe?
Possibly.
Aft heavy.
I just assumed this was some kind of camouflage system you use when you parked in a dodgy sort of, Home Depot car park or something.
Okay.
You threw this over your nice vehicle so that it
Nothing
looked
to
like
see
that.
here. I'm just
Yeah.
working. I'm just here at the Home Depot parking lot working on my project.
I know. Why waste?
I
Why
think
waste
there's
your
plenty
money
of
on
stains
paint,
in
Liz?
there.
Hey, you know what? That looks like a pretty sweet rig. I'm thinking that might be my next rig in my RV life.
Well, I love the fact it's only got one window and that points
Yeah.
backwards.
As long as you always park in whatever direction the sun
nice.
is currently. Fine.
It is nice, those 2x4 supports on the hood.
Oh, yeah. Beautifully made.
A little extra
Wood,
reinforcement.
wood screwed right into the front fenders.
Pull the deck screws out to do the trick. Just-
What's that, Liz? Yeah, next time I'll let you know, Sam, when I'm in your neighborhood. Keep looking for me. All right, with that, that was funny. We're going to go ahead and end this show by pointing you to our website, Airline Pilot Guy. It's airlinepilotguy.com. It's safe, secure, and so informative and entertaining and all that. And we are also on the social media. And Dr. Steph, maybe you can tell us about
You know
that.
what they are. There's a couple of them that we like to frequent. There's facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. Head over to X. We are at APG Crew, and our individual handles, I believe, still pinned to the top of that page if you're looking for them. If you're really itching to find Captain Nick's show art for each week's show and search for the show numbers, that's on Instagram. We're APG Crew there as well. If you're looking for the the recordings of the live show or to join the live show, that's on YouTube, youtube.com/airlinepilotguy. And if that's still not enough, I, as always, would like to recommend Slack.
Well, I hear the shower, and don't use all my water, man. Can you tell us about Slack?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
I know you're using all my precious water. Please put your towel back on. Thank you. Okay.
Family show.
Now, family show. Come on over here and tell us all about.
And sit
Slack,
on my
please.
lap.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks a lot, Hillel. We do appreciate that. And I want to, put out a wonderful shout out to our producer who we really missed dearly through the first part of the show. So thank you.
The Lord you
for
pitched up when
rescuing
you did.
Yes, thank you so
I don't know if you were listening, Liz, but you missed Jeff had like a seizure at the beginning or something. He just started pressing all the buttons at once.
It was a mess. I have to say, it was a mess, and I'm just not that coordinated. I tried. I even practiced. I really even practiced. Anyway, we really miss you, Liz, and also we would like to thank our live audience and our live chat recording this video. You guys are amazing people, and we love you so much. And it was Hawaiian Airline. Finally, Sam got back to us. Well, we had a lot of latency and lag there. It was Hawaiian Airlines with the weird seating arrangements or numbering or lettering.
He may
or
also
whatever.
have a job where he's like
What's
trying
that?
to bounce back and forth.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for listening to the show and telling your friends and enemies about it, and reviews and all that kind of jazz. But you know what?
Jeff, just before you wrap it up, there's a big birthday coming up. We just want to maybe sing happy birthday
Oh, that's
to somebody.
right. And just a couple of days here between this show and the
afterwards.
next is someone we know and love very dearly.
He wants to make sure he
Captain
gets
Nick,
there
so-
first.
So here we go. This is going to be a
Get outta
mess.
here.
So,
It's going to have to be
okay.
premature. I'm sorry.
Happy birthday
Day
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
Captain
Nick. Happy birthday to you.
To you.
And many more.
Wow, that was so much
That was-
fun. Thank you
That was
very
painful.
much.
I know.
indeed.
Sorry.
What a
But you know what? You
tribute.
deserve
I
it.
think
guys,
I picked at least 4 separate keys to try to sing that in,
Yeah.
and I moved
That's
very
okay.
far away
so
from my
good.
mic.
You guys are so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we
Anyway,
love you,
carry on.
Congratulations.
And so with that, we're going to say, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
See you next time.
Bye.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did it.
Yeah.
I don't know how we made it through this without you, Liz.
Absolute
Oh,
shambles,
man.
but it was fun.
I don't know.
So
Yeah, it was normal, right?
I have a couple of suggestions. Sorry, I wasn't listening to the
What?
but I know.
What?
Well, I mean, I kind of was, but anyway. Okay, so you were talking about those pieces shearing off in the Osprey. So sheer drama, like a play on words. I don't know. Anyway, get the lead out. Yeah. Thanks.
the wad out.
I've got another appointment next week. I forgot to tell you. Anyway, get the lead out, which is about the gas thing.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
I
okay.
like that. That's good.
What about Nick? You had about 3 times fried chips or twice baked potatoes or something like that. I don't know.
3, yeah. Yep, 3.
What was
3
this?
cooked.
I liked
There was something
Herring
I said
Boeing.
that might be a good show title, and I just don't
Herring
remember. what
Boeing.
it
Herring
was.
Boeing.
Herring Boeing.
How can it not
Herring
be?
boning.
How can it not be? Don't miss the BJ or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
I'm just scared of the artwork. That's all.
That makes
Yeah,
Jeff
not-
nervous. You can
Come on,
see
There's
it.
really
a
not helping.
there's a illumination sign from the movie Airplane that I feel like might end up on the like a passenger sign that he might use.
The
it
herring
for.
Boeing can be kind of like Salmon, the Alaska Airlines plane, the Salmon 77, whatever.
Salmon 37.
That's it, Salmon 37.
Salmon
Herring
37.
Herring
Salmon
Boeing.
37.
Herring
If
Boeing.
if anyone
And
has
What
anything.
is that Alaska thing? I've never heard of that. Salmon.
They have a 737 painted up in looks like a big salmon. On the
You know
side.
how they have animals on their tails, like they have a grizzly bear and all
I
these.
have animals in the flight deck.
Yeah. Well, they
Yeah,
had mushrooms
that's
on.
true.
Well, put a mushroom.
It's true. Now, question mark. What's another word for a labyrinth? It's one of those.
A maze.
Maze. Yeah,
yes.
maze.
So I
Amazing.
was thinking of going seat maze.
Mm.
Seat
Maze.
maze.
Amazing seat numbers. Mm.
Amazing seat numbers. I'll
Herring
think
boning the
about it.
seat maze.
I don't want to talk
Herring.
about herring boning. It sounds too racy.
Oh, I didn't realize it was a
Little
sexual deviancy, but
Oh,
I'll take your word for it, Liz.
Sounds exciting.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm going to be Googling that from now on.
there you go.
The Urban
All right,
It's on
Dictionary.
Urban
Sure.
Dictionary, yeah.
We should probably
Consensual
check the
herring
Urban
boning.
Dictionary.
We should.
I'm not seeing anything
He
from the
knows.
chat room, so they're useless. So,
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sharon. Jeez.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm looking at the chat room. Is there
Nothing.
any other suggestions? No, they're
Nothing.
pretty
They're
useless
worthless.
this time,
Very
aren't they?
useless.
What's the point of them?
we're going to have to end
Why?
the stream because you guys aren't contributing. So, bye.
Ending the stream.
Bye.
Okay, that's another suggestion.
Bye.
End the stream.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining.
Thanks so much for joining
Cheers,
us.
folks.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Good job. Well done,
Bye.
Sam. That was funny.